Chapter 1133. You should know that after you become Emperor Wu, you will reconstruct your golden body. At that time, physical injuries will no longer be able to kill Emperor Wu. As long as the heart of an emperor remains, it will be hard to sever his vitality. Now, you understand why this step is so difficult. Xiao Chen's comprehension ability was startling. Naturally, he understood immediately. Cultivating a soul from the heavenly realm already touched upon the core of Emperor Wu. This was directly related to the heart of an emperor. It would be difficult, even if one did not want it to be. Elder Qin said unhurriedly, "The path to martial emperor is not simple. This step already stops 90% of the blue-robed emperors. After that, the great tribulation of wind and fire stops another 90%. It would not be too much to describe the cultivators of my Kunlun realm as billions or billions. We have no lack of geniuses. However, the number of people who can break through to Emperor Wu every 500 years can be counted on two hands. Every Emperor Wu, no matter how strong or weak, is in existence with astonishing luck in the Kunlun realm. Since ancient times, countless people have died on the path to martial emperor. However, there is still an unending stream of people advancing. Of the 10 billion cultivators, the number who could become Emperor Wu every 500 years could be counted on two hands." Xiao Qin sighed. The success of a general was built on the bones of 10,000 people. This probability could not even be described as 1 in 100 million. Furthermore, Xiao Chen had less than 4 years left. At the summit, Xiao Chen and Elder Qin chatted for a long time. They even exchanged moves. After exchanging a few moves, Elder Qin sighed. Now that the age of geniuses was in full swing, there were more demonic geniuses than the last. Xiao Chen was a demonic genius among demonic geniuses. The number of people who advanced to martial emperor in the past 100 years probably surpassed the total number of people who advanced to martial emperor in the past few thousand years. However, when it came to Xiao Qin, Elder Qin could not help showing the look of pity in his eyes. "Xiao Qin, my life is not considered long, but I have lived for several hundred years and seen countless geniuses. Many outstanding talents died prematurely due to various reasons. Some were too sharp, some were overzealous, some were arrogant, and some were too engrossed in their desires. You are the only exception." "What a pity!" Elder Qin could not help saying. Xiao Chen smiled calmly and said, "If I had not ignored the consequences and tempered my physical body back then, or if I had not tempered my quintessence twice when I was a martial sage, my physical body would not have such problems now. However, if that were really the case, I would have nothing. I would not be able to defeat those outstanding talents of the Kunlun continent, and I would not be able to sweep through everyone during the king conferral ceremony, obtaining overwhelming luck. Everything in the world has its cause and effect. Nothing is certain. It's best not to think too much and look forward. It is best not to martial Emperor Wu." Xiao Chen said, "I know. Martial Emperor Wu are the emperor, martial Wu, emperor, Xiao Wu, Chen Wu, emperor, and Wu will not to use it. To Wu, we will. We will only be able to show off before the blue-robed emperor. Compared to the true Emperor Wu, it is not worth mentioning. I will not choose this path." Elder Qin was not surprised by Xiao Chen's answer. He smiled faintly and said, "That is all I have of the cultivation experience of the great perfection, blue-robed emperor. I will not disturb your cultivation any longer. If you need anything, you can look for me at any time." Elder Qin was not surprised by Xiao Chen's answer. He smiled faintly and said, "This is all the cultivation experience I have for a great perfection, quasi-emperor. I will not disturb your cultivation any longer. If you have any problems, you can look for me at any time." In the end, the cultivation of the great perfection blue-robed emperor was still a matter of accumulating resources. After reaching the peak of the great perfection blue-robed emperor, he would start cultivating the soul, merging the soul with the heavenly seal. That was the true dividing line. In the end, the cultivation of the great perfection blue-robed emperor depended on accumulating resources. When one reached the peak of the great perfection blue-robed emperor, one would start to cultivate the soul, merging the soul with the heavenly seal. That was the true dividing line. However, Shao Chen had just reached the great perfection blue-robed emperor. He was still a long way from the peak, so he needed a vast amount of resources to cultivate. Shao Chen had used about 1% of the king's spirit veins in the treasure trove to break through the bottleneck. Most of the rest had not been used. Logically speaking, with such a king's spirit vein, Shao Chen did not lack resources. However, he felt that using this king's spirit vein to cultivate was too wasteful. There was no quality-price ratio. Even the holy lands and immortal holy lands that had existed for tens of thousands of years or tens of thousands of years did not have many king's spirit veins. Even if they included the spares, they would not have more than 5. It was not worth it to use this king's spirit vein on his own blue-robed emperor. As long as Shao Chen broke through the bottleneck, he would have more than enough holy spirit veins to satisfy his needs. Shao Chen wanted to leave this king's spirit vein for the future Dragon's Gate, to make it a capital that could rival a holy land. To find another king's spirit vein, he needed to be as strong as a sovereign martial emperor at the very least. Shao Chen still remembered the scene of the Northern Sea Alliance turning out in full force for the sake of subduing what he suspected to be a king's spirit vein. If a king's spirit vein really appeared, the Northern Sea Alliance's sovereign martial emperor would definitely come out to prevent other factions from snatching it. I have to find a new holy spirit vein. I have nearly used up all the records on the vellum. I will have to rely on my dragon-seeking art later. A light flashed in Shao Chen's eyes. He thought of making a trip to the Black Sea to look for Ba Tuesday. He wanted to see if he could find some secrets of the Yuan clan from the corpse that Ba Tu had obtained. This would allow Shao Chen's dragon-seeking art to improve further. At that time, he would be more confident of finding a holy spirit vein. Collecting his thoughts, Shao Chen did not think too much for now. He sat cross-legged on the summit and started to cultivate, stabilizing his great perfection, blue-robed emperor cultivation. Time flashed. Soon, half a month went by. Shao Chen's great perfection, blue-robed emperor cultivation had stabilized. Now he could control the heavenly seal as he pleased. With a thought, the dragon-shaped heavenly seal could activate all 10,000 heavenly laws. In an instant, he could bring out all the power of the world that he could. As the heavenly seal formed, Shao Chen's comprehension of the world deepened. The world was no longer as fixed and unmoving as before. He could clearly feel the movement of the entire world. He could vaguely see the core laws of this universe, space and time, which were the lines of the chessboard of fate. However, he could only vaguely see them. He could not change these two great laws. This was especially so for the time laws. They were even more profound and ever-changing than the space laws, unfathomable. During this period, Emo Chun came by once. She had already completed the sketch of the Heaven Dragon City. Based on Emo Chen's estimates, the construction of the city could be completed within 2 years, using 1 million manpower. Furthermore, with Emo Chen's ability to manage and command, it would be very fast. If it were someone else, they would need to coordinate with the other refiners, formation masters, and geomancers. That would take even longer. They might not even be able to complete it in 10 years. The refugees were relocated to the other small cities on Heavenly Star Island, as well as the 7 satellite islands. There was no need to doubt Lan Xiaobai's and Emo Chen's abilities in this aspect. The subsidiary islands that the other factions occupied were also taken over in an orderly manner. Heavenly Star Island's development entered a new trajectory, developing at a high speed. Everything proceeded smoothly and orderly. Now that Shao Chen had some free time, he started refining medicinal pills. This was the heavenly origin pill that he promised to refine for the holy daughter, Yu Bingyin. After returning to Heavenly Star Island, Xiao Chun had been very busy and did not have much time. Since Xiao Chun had some free time, he switched to helping Yu Bingyin refine the Heavenly Origin Pill. After all, he could not break his promise. The refinement process did not go smoothly. However, Xiao Chun was not in a rush. After all, the other party had prepared 100 sets of ingredients. There was no fear of failure. He would succeed one day. After 78 failures, Xiao Chun finally succeeded in refining this Heavenly Origin Pill. Lord Blue Dragon King, the city lord, says that there are honored guests visiting and invites you to the palace. A youth rushed up from the foot of the mountain nimbly. He had an expression of worship as he spoke respectfully to Xiao Chun. This youth was one of the young disciples that you taught. Xiao Chun could tell from his attire. These youths were all seedlings that Xiao Chun had picked from the ordinary people's clans. Their talent was pretty good, and they would be able to take on heavy responsibilities in the future. Xiao Chun put away the medicinal pill in his hand and rewarded the youth with some things. Then the youth left happily. When regular people came to visit, Lan Xiaobai would not disturb him. This person probably had some status. Who could it be? Feeling curious, Xiao Chun pushed off the ground and flew towards the palace in the mountain. In a few breaths, Xiao Chun arrived outside the palace. When the disciples guarding the door saw him, they immediately bowed in greeting. Xiao Chun calmed his emotions and walked in calmly. He discovered that there were many people in the palace, but their attire was not the same. However, their cultivations were all at the peak of the great perfection blue-robed emperor. Furthermore, they were all aware that they could not merge their souls with the heavenly seal, so they focused on tempering their heavenly laws to raise their combat prowess. These people had remained at the peak for at least 100 years. Not only were their heavenly laws incredibly dense, but they were also pure. Their strength was unfathomable. The instant Xiao Chun stepped into the palace, he immediately felt several gazes probing him. When they saw that Xiao Chun was only a newly advanced, great perfection, blue-robed emperor, doubt flashed in their eyes. Lan Xiaobai, who was entertaining this group of people, immediately sent a voice projection when Xiao Chun came over. Xiao Chun, these are the vice sect masters of the nearby 9 ranks of the great families. On the surface, they are here to pay a visit out of courtesy, to befriend you. In reality, they do not have good intentions. They are here to probe us. As the saying went, those who come do not have good intentions, and those who are kind do not come. Xiao Chun could more or less guess the purpose of these people. After he heard Lan Xiaobai's voice projection, he performed a cupped fist salute and said, "Everyone's sorry for being late. The Blue Dragon King is too polite." Since they were here to pay a visit to Heavenly Star Island, they still had to show basic courtesy. These vice sect masters of the 9 ranks of the great families all stood up and returned the greeting. There were many of the 9 ranks of the great families in the Heavenly Starry Ocean. As long as they had Emperor Wu, a sect with a Holy Spirit vein and 2,000 disciples, they could be considered one of the 9 ranks of the great families. However, most of the nearby 9 ranks of the great families did not have any accumulations. Their inheritances would not exceed 1,000 years. Compared to the peak 9 ranks of the great families like the Haotian sect, there was a huge difference. Based on the vice sect masters seated here, they were merely peak great perfection quasi-emperors, so Xiao Chun could make some guesses. Based on what Xiao Chun knew, the vice sect masters of the Haotian sect were all minor heavenly sovereigns. Furthermore, there would only be one Emperor Wu. As far as Xiao Chun knew, the vice sect masters of the Haotian sect were already consummation blue-robed emperors many years ago. After the previous sect master became a greater heavenly Emperor Wu, he retired. There were still many supreme elders who were strong and had deep accumulations, having passed down their legacies for more than 10,000 years. Chapter 1134. As they walked forward, Xiao Chun sat in the middle and picked up his teacup. Then he said indifferently, "Sorry, Heavenly Star Island just went through a great calamity. I do not have much to entertain you all with. If you all have a purpose, just say it." The several old men sitting on both sides were stunned. According to the rules of this place, when the host picked up his teacup, it meant that he was sending off the guests. When they heard Xiao Chen's words, it was clear that he was impatient and did not beat around the bush. Everyone could not help but turn silent. The spacious hall was quiet and peaceful. Lan Xiaobai found it funny. Xiao Chen was really Xiao Chen. He knew that this group of people came with ill intentions. He did not bother with pleasantries at all, getting straight to the point, not playing by the rules. Haha. Unexpectedly, at such a young age, the Blue Dragon King's temper is not small at all. What is the meaning of this? Sending off the guests with tea? A gray-robed old man on the right, furthest from Xiao Chen, asked with a superficial smile. Lan Xiaobai sent a voice projection. This is the Fire Beacon Sect's Vice Sect Master, Qian Zongchao. He is considered a powerful person, especially with his palm strike. He is very incredible and famous in our sea region. Xiao Chen understood and ignored this person. He said indifferently, "Heavenly Star Island just went through a great calamity. However, we also resolved some conflicts and took over all the subsidiary islands. I am very clear on what you are here for. Since you are not going to say it, I will say it for you. You are just here to probe out the situation, to see if I, Xiao Qin, can suppress such a large area. Then, to see if you have a chance to get some benefits for yourselves." The expressions of the others froze. After Xiao Qin said what they were thinking, they all felt somewhat unnatural. Only the Fire Beacon Sect's Vice Sect Master, Qian Zongchao, laughed loudly and said, "Blue Dragon King, you must be joking. Our Fire Beacon Sect is here to discuss cooperation." Xiao Qin smiled coldly and asked, "What kind of cooperation?" "Naturally, it is a cooperation that is beneficial to both sides. Since Stellar Sky City was destroyed, it will require a lot of resources to rebuild it. I am representing the Fire Beacon Sect to send money to the Blue Dragon King." Right after Qian Zongchao spoke, he waved his hand, and a pile of black astral coins flew out from his spatial ring. The faint light overlapped, dazzling the eyes. There should be about 5 million of them. "Here is 5 million black astral coins. Our Fire Beacon Sect wishes to purchase Black Flame Island from the Blue Dragon King," Qian Zongchao said casually. Wanting to buy Black Flame Island with 5 million black astral coins was simply daylight robbery. Bang! Bang! Seeing that Qian Zongchao had made his intentions clear, the other 8 old men made their moves as well. Piles of black astral coins appeared in the hall, reaching 45 million black astral coins. This group of people had a startlingly large appetite. All that was left was the main island of Heavenly Star Island. They would have emptied out Xiao Chen's conferred land. 45 million black astral coins was already a huge sum. Even the peak blue robed emperor would only have so much. Some of the weaker rank 8 sects would not have more than this sum. Some might even have less. Regular outstanding youths would find it hard to remain calm when they saw such a lineup. Their auras would be completely suppressed. However, who was Xiao Qin? He had even seen 1 billion black astral coins in the Dragon's Gate's treasure trove. This amount of money was like a drizzle to him. Xiao Qin wanted to use his wealth to suppress others and occupy the island in his conferred land, leaving others speechless. This was a brilliant move. Even if the Bushin Palace pursued the matter, Xiao Qin could say that he had used money to buy the island. This would leave others speechless, and they could only blame Xiao Qin for not living up to expectations. However, it was still the same as before. Playing this move before the rich, Xiao Chen, was like playing house. It was extremely laughable. A trace of mockery flashed in Qian Zongchao's eyes. To think that a brat with no hair on his mouth wants to compete with us veterans. He is really naive. Qian Zongchao put down his teacup and said indifferently, I believe that the Blue Dragon King has never seen so much money before. With so many black astral coins, it is sufficient for you to rebuild 3 heavenly star cities." When Xiao Chen heard this, he could not help laughing softly. Competing with me in wealth? What could be funnier than this? Money came like a river and went like water. Before obtaining the Dragon's Gate's treasure trove, the black astral coins in Xiao Chen's hands were already more than the pile of money here. Furthermore, after obtaining the Dragon's Gate's treasure trove, Heavenly Star Island's accumulated wealth was no weaker than the 9 ranks of the great families. If Xiao Chen included that king's spirit vein, even the Holy Lands would not dare to boast so shamelessly before him. What are you laughing at? When Qian Zongchao saw the mocking smile on Xiao Chen's face, he felt a strange rage. Seated in the middle, Xiao Chen said indifferently, "I'm laughing at your shameless boasting. You only took out 5 million black astral coins and still dare to boast before me, saying that you want to buy Black Flame Island. You say that I have never seen money before. I'm afraid that you do not know what true wealth is. How arrogant! How many black astral coins can you take out?" "You!" Before Qian Zongchao could finish speaking, his jaw dropped. The shock in his eyes was so great that he could not continue. There was no other reason. Xiao Chen waved his hand, and piles of black astral coins appeared. There was a total of 9 piles. Each pile was twice the amount of black astral coins that the 9 ranks of the great families took out. There was no more, no less. Xiao Chen took out a total of 90 million black astral coins alone. If money can solve everything, then I will buy your entire Fire Beacon sect with these 90 million black astral coins. Do you agree?" Xiao Chen shouted as he stood up. An overwhelming aura pressed down on Qian Zongchao. The 9 old men felt stifled in their hearts. Their thoughts went wild, and they found it somewhat difficult to control themselves. Originally, they wanted to use a large number of black astral coins to crush Xiao Chen's will. Who could have imagined that Xiao Chen would turn the tables on them? This shocked them, and they immediately fell silent. Their auras were completely suppressed by Xiao Chen. This was especially so for Qian Zongchao. His face alternated between red and green, feeling very sullen. When faced with Xiao Chen's interrogation, he felt stifled, not knowing how to reply. "Damn it! No matter what, you have to sell Black Flame Island to my Fire Beacon sect. You have to sell it whether you want to or not." Unable to think of anything to say, Qian Zongchao directly stated his purpose, shedding all pretense of cordiality. Xiao Chen smiled faintly, becoming even more at ease. He slowly walked down and said calmly, "What's wrong? Are you trying to force me to sell it?" Qian Zongchao calmed down and remembered the sect master's instructions. He should do his best not to shed all pretense of cordiality. At the very least, he should not do so openly. He could not leave any room for discussion. After calming himself, Qian Zongchao said coldly, "I don't dare to. Our Fire Beacon sect is rather famous. We never do things like force. I have long heard of the Blue Dragon King's unparalleled glory, instantly defeating all the outstanding talents of the world in one move at the Four Seas Hero Gathering. Do you dare to make a bet with this Qian?" Xiao Chen asked indifferently, "What do you want to bet?" Qian Zongchao replied coldly, "You instantly defeated all the outstanding talents of the world in one move at the Four Seas Hero Gathering. I will bet with you in one move as well. We will only compete in one move. Whoever is at a disadvantage will be the loser. If you lose, you will sell Black Flame Island to me. Don't say that my Fire Beacon sect is forcing you to sell it. If I lose, I will apologize, and the Fire Beacon sect will not seek trouble for Heavenly Star Island anymore." The moment Qian Zongchao said that, the crowd burst into an uproar. Right now, Xiao Chen was only an early stage, great perfection, blue-robed emperor. As for Qian Zongchao, he was at the peak of the great perfection, blue-robed emperor, having cultivated for 100 years. Furthermore, Qian Zongchao's palm technique made him famous among the many factions in the nearby sea region. His palm contained a boundless sea of fire and a horrifying explosive force. He had even smashed a small perfection blue robed emperor to death with one palm strike. Blue Dragon King, do you dare to agree? Seeing that Xiao Chen was only an early stage, great perfection blue robed emperor, Qian Zongchao felt very confident. He stepped forward and pressed on. Lan Xiaobai stopped Qian Zongchao and said, "Xiao Chen, don't fall for his trick. The cultivation technique, martial technique, and killing moves he cultivates are all explosive. When he fights with others, if he cannot severely injure his opponent with one palm strike, he will quickly flee." Lan Xiaobai had a very clear understanding of Qian Zongchao's information, so he advised Xiao Chen not to be rash. Xiao Chen understood what Lan Xiaobai meant. Some people were stuck at a certain bottleneck for their entire lives, unable to improve. After that, they would take an unconventional path and think of other ways to raise their combat prowess. This Qian Zongchao before Xiao Chen was one of those people. He focused all his attention on how to increase his explosive power. Qian Zongchao wanted to use money to suppress Xiao Chen, but ended up being humiliated by Xiao Chen. So, he thought of this method to regain his momentum. If Xiao Chen did not agree, he would be seen as a coward. Qian Zongchao would use this to spread the rumor. Furthermore, Qian Zongchao would continuously seek trouble for him in the future. If Xiao Chen agreed, he would be playing into Qian Zongchao's hands. Qian Zongchao would not lose out no matter what. Waving his hand, Xiao Chen told Lan Xiaobai not to say anything else. There were so many vice, sect, masters watching. If Xiao Chen could resolve this matter well, he would be able to deter the surrounding factions, which would be of great benefit to Heavenly Star Island. Even though Xiao Chen knew that Qian Zongchao was trying to goad him, he still had to go. The most important thing was that Xiao Chen was not afraid of competing in explosive power. If it were a fair fight, he would drag it out. Given the depth of Qian Zongchao's cultivation, Xiao Chen would be at a disadvantage. It would be much more difficult to defeat Qian Zongchao, and he would have to pay a higher price as well. A clash of moves was exactly what Xiao Chen wanted. Qian Zongchao, who did not know that he had run into trouble, smiled and said, "How is it? Don't tell me that you, the bona fide Blue Dragon King, are afraid of an old man like me? I promise you." Xiao Chen smiled faintly as he stared at Qian Zongchao. Qian Zongchao could not blame him for seeking his own humiliation. Discussions immediately broke out in the hall. The other 8 old men were all very surprised. After learning about Qian Zongchao and his cultivation, Xiao Chen still chose to agree. The others withdrew and cleared out the black astral coins, creating an empty space. The buildings in the hall all had restrictions infused into them, which could endure a battle at the level of the blue-robed emperor. As long as it was not a drawn-out battle, they could settle it in one move. Lan Xiaobai knew that he could not dissuade Xiao Chen, so he sighed and retreated to the back as well. He, the Blue Dragon King, truly lives up to his reputation as the Blue Dragon King. Unfortunately, you are too young. Today, I'll tell you that the older, the wiser. After Qian Zongchao spoke, he raised his leg and took a step forward. He did not move at all, but he arrived before Xiao Chen in an instant. Then he threw a palm strike. The instant Qian Zongchao sent out his palm strike, the aura of a boundless sea of fire erupted. Chapter 1135. It looked like there was no build-up. However, the mysterious phenomenon that erupted was shockingly horrifying. Behind Qian Zongchao, the power of the world turned into a sea of flames that looked like a real sea. Waves overlapped, boundless, unfathomable, and immeasurable. Furthermore, based on the minute slow motion, one could see that every time Qian Zongchao's palm moved forward, a flaming wave would rise from the sea, one wave after another, overlapping. In the time it took for Qian Zongchao to stretch out his hand, Tens of thousands of flaming waves overlapped. When it came into contact with Xiao Chen's palm, all the energy would erupt in an instant. Qian Zongchao lived up to his name. As a peak expert with explosive power, Qian Zongchao had indeed broadened Xiao Chen's horizons. He let Xiao Chen know that none of these old blue-robed emperor, who had been stuck at peak great perfection for hundreds of years, were simple. However, that was all. This move was not enough to defeat Xiao Chen. With a thought, the dragon-shaped heavenly seal breathed. The 10,000 heavenly laws in Xiao Chen's body instantly stirred up, not stopping for a moment. The mysterious phenomenon, triggered by the 10,000 heavenly laws, stirring up the power of the world at the same time. It was like 10,000 true dragons drilled out of Xiao Chen's body. As the 10,000 dragons soared, cracks appeared in the buildings behind him. These buildings, which could withstand a strike from the blue-robed emperor, started cracking under the mysterious phenomenon triggered by Xiao Chen. A sorrowful aura lingered in the great hall amid the scarlet flowers. As a blood moon soared, Xiao Chen used the 1,000-year death to clash with Qian Zongchao's palm strike, the boundless sea of flames. Boom! The instant the two palms clashed, the roof of the great hall was blown off and shattered into powder. The destructive power of the aftershocks from the two palms far surpassed everyone's expectations. The buildings that could withstand the might of the blue-robed emperor's battle were destroyed in half by the two palms. The two were competing in explosive power. From start to finish, their moves were clean and efficient without any flourishes. The victor was decided in one breath. Xiao Chen didn't move from his original position. He slowly retracted his palm, causing his clothes and hair to slowly fall to the ground. Qian Zongchao vomited a mouthful of blood and took 100 steps back before falling to the ground. He looked at Xiao Chen angrily and coughed out another mouthful of blood. He pointed at Xiao Chen and cursed. "You tricked me." Strictly speaking, Xiao Chen did scam him, but he was the one who picked this trap. In the Four Seas Hero Gathering, he dared to challenge all the outstanding talents and chose to decide the victor in one move. One of the main reasons was that his forte was the explosive power of killer moves. In less than half a month after advancing to great perfection, Quasi-Emperor, Xiao Chen could instantly drive 10,000 heavenly laws with a thought, releasing and withdrawing them as he pleased. Qian Zongchao dared to compete with Xiao Chen in explosive power, wanting to decide victory in one move. If this was not seeking his own humiliation, what was? Lan Xiaobai heaved a sigh of relief. Then he stepped forward and said, "Sect Master Qian, I hope that you will abide by your promise. The people of the Fire Beacon sect will not appear in the sea region of Heavenly Star Island in the future." The other fellow cultivators heard it for themselves. Qian Zongchao found it hard to express his bitterness. He had not expected that after living for several hundred years, he would fall to the hands of a junior. Even though Qian Zongchao clearly held an absolute advantage, his expression did not change at all before the battle started. It was like he was pretending. Qian Zongchao stood up and walked over to the black astral coins that he had tossed out. He prepared to put away the black astral coins and leave quickly. This time, he had completely embarrassed himself. "Wait!" Xiao Chun shouted coldly, stopping Qian Zongchao's actions. Qian Zongchao demanded angrily, "What do you want?" "I don't want to do anything. This hall is riddled with restrictions, and it is costly to build. You even blew off the roof, and you want to leave for nothing?" Xiao Qin said unhurriedly, "You have to leave behind these 5 million black astral coins. You are twisting words and forcing logic." Xiao Chun retorted indifferently, "That's right. I am twisting words and forcing logic. Whoever tries to reason with me, Xiao Chen, will do so. I will do so openly and openly. However, if anyone tries to be unreasonable with me, thinking of forcefully buying and selling or using force to bully others, I, Xiao Chen, will be even more unreasonable than them. Right after Xiao Qin spoke, he threw another palm strike. Before Qian Zongchao could reply, he directly sent him flying, not giving him any face at all. The other 8 old men immediately exchanged glances. Xiao Chen's forcefulness and his words were clearly directed at them, just as these old men were feeling uneasy, wondering if Xiao Chen would snatch back their black astral coins. Xiao Chen smiled and said, "Everyone, are you not going to take back your black astral coins?" Xiao Chen smiled and said, "Everyone, are you not going to take back your black astral coins?" When the group heard this, they immediately heaved a sigh of relief. Then they quickly took back the 5 million black astral coins that they had tossed out. When the group heard this, they immediately heaved a sigh of relief. Then they quickly took back the 5 million black astral coins that they had tossed out. After these old men took back their black astral coins, Xiao Qin sent out a palm strike. Amid a loud sound, the pile of black astral coins that Qian Zongchao left behind turned into dust. 5 million black astral coins turned to dust before the eyes of these old men. This sight stunned them into stupefaction. 5 million black astral coins was a significant sum for any of the blue-robed emperors. However, Xiao Qin did not even blink, directly shattering it with one palm strike. What does this mean? Everyone thought to themselves. These old men were all experienced people who had lived for several hundred years. They quickly understood what Xiao Qin meant. This was Xiao Qin expressing his stance. Xiao Qin did not care about 5 million black astral coins. He wanted Qian Zongchao to leave behind these black astral coins to make the other party pay the price. Anyone who wanted to target Heavenly Star Island needed to be mentally prepared to pay the price. Otherwise, they would end up like this pile of black astral coins before them. After the vice sect masters of the 9 ranks of the great families reacted, they immediately smiled and started chatting with Xiao Qin. They all promised that they would not seek trouble for Heavenly Star Island and that this matter was just a misunderstanding. After seeing Xiao Chen's strength, it would not be wise for them to try anything. Although the 9 ranks of the great families had Emperor Wu holding down the fort, and Xiao Chen was definitely not a match for them, Emperor Wu could not possibly remain in his sect at all times. People like Xiao Chen who offended Xiao Qin would take advantage of the fact that Emperor Wu was not around to seek trouble for him every 2 or 3 days, causing everyone to panic. It was not the first time that such a large sect was killed until only a general was left. Those who had nothing to lose were not afraid of slippers. If both sides suffered, it would not be good for either side. The most important thing was that Xiao Qin was rather clever. He only taught Qian Zongchao a lesson. He did not make things difficult for the other old men who took out their black astral coins. This was considered as not shedding all pretense. This made it much easier to talk to them. "I'll take my leave first. In the future, if the Blue Dragon King has time, you can come to our sect for a visit and improve our relationship." Since the roof of the great hall had been torn off, it was clearly not suitable for them to remain for long. After everyone expressed their stance, the various old men got up and prepared to leave. Lan Xiaobai heaved a sigh of relief at the side. This matter was finally resolved. One could not be too polite to such people. The weaker one was, the more others would think that one was easy to bully. Xiao Chen had handled the situation appropriately. He had displayed his strength without offending everyone. Just at this moment, a strong mental pressure swept out in all directions. Everyone on Heavenly Star Island felt like a pair of ruthless eyes were staring at them. Suddenly, they did not dare to move at all. It was as if they were facing a great enemy. They all felt fear in their hearts for some reason. This gaze seemed to sweep through the entire island before focusing on Xiao Qin. This made the others release their bated breath. This is the might and pressure of Emperor Wu. The group of old men in the great hall were very knowledgeable and quickly determined the strength of this newcomer. Could it be that Qian Zongqiao is unconvinced and got his sect master to come personally? It does not seem like it. Furthermore, that is impossible. The Fire Beacon sect's sect master would not dare to ignore Bushin Palace. Furthermore, this time, Qian Zongqiao messed things up. He is not in the right at all, given the character of the Fire Beacon sect's sect master. Even if he came, he would be trying to mend the relationship. The most important thing is that this might does not seem like the might and pressure of a minor heavenly Emperor Wu. It is much stronger than the Fire Beacon sect's sect masters. The expressions of the few old men changed as they discussed in soft voices. They could not guess which martial emperor came. Who would be so bold as to come here with Emperor Wu's cultivation? After all, Shao Qin was the Thunder King's favored Blue Dragon King. This was Bushin Palace's conferred land. Even if Shao Qin coveted the resources here and sent a group of subordinates over, when Bushin Palace investigated, they could still say that Shao Qin was not as skilled as others. If Shao Qin could not defeat cultivators of the same cultivation and was not worthy of occupying the Sea region, Bushin Palace would have nothing to say. If Shao Qin personally came, he clearly did not conform to some secret rules. Was he not mocking the fact that Bushin Palace had no one? Bushin Palace could not just sit back and watch. Otherwise, they would lose face the entire Bushin Palace. Lan Xiaobai's heart sank. He more or less guessed who had come. He frowned heavily. This would not be easy to deal with. Big trouble was coming. Back then, Shao Qin had directly killed the purple-clad man of the 7 heroes of the dragon. This time, it was probably the purple-clad man's father, the purple-clad marquis, who had come personally. Shao Qin felt extremely uncomfortable enduring the huge might. His legs turned soft, and he nearly knelt down. The difference in cultivation was too great. Just the formless might was unblockable. Qi. At the crucial moment, little yellow feather flew out of the immortal spirit ring and landed on Shao Qin's shoulder. It used its holy beast bloodline to share some of the pressure for Shao Qin. Shao Qin flicked his finger and discovered that he could move. With a thought, a golden sage feather appeared in his hand and hid it in his sleeve. This was the last resort of the Golden Crow race. At a crucial moment, it could severely injure Emperor Wu in exchange for a chance to live. This was Shao Qin's greatest trump card. A sharp-eyed person recognized Little Yellow Feather on Shao Qin's shoulder and cried out in shock, "The Golden Crow, holy beast!" This was a legendary holy beast of the immortal epoch, possessing a noble bloodline. It only existed in ancient texts, rarely seen. Yet, Shao Qin had this golden crow as a pet. Hu Qi. The space in the hall tore easily, and an imposing middle-aged man wearing purple dragon robes and battle armor walked out with large strides. His aura was extraordinary, and an intimidating pressure was emitted from his body. The purple-clad Marquis. Astonishment came one after another. The martial emperor who came was actually Neptune's old subordinate, the current purple-clad Marquis. He was a greater heavenly Emperor Wu, a true peak character of the Western Sea. Chapter 1136. The purple-clad Marquis faction was also one of the 9 ranks of the great families. However, in terms of accumulations, the purple-clad Marquis faction was much stronger than the 9 ranks of the great families. Even if the major sects worked together, they would barely be able to deal with the purple-clad Marquis. Furthermore, the Western Sea Divine Dragon Palace supported him. When the old men saw this scene, they could not help but wonder. The purple-clad Marquis personally came with a hostile expression. Something major must have happened. Shao Qin was probably in trouble. Another variable appeared in Heavenly Star Island. Primordial Golden Crow, brat, you are really overflowing with luck. You can even subdue such a mythical holy beast. I won't speak any nonsense. You should know what I am here for. You are probably mentally prepared. The purple-clad Marquis glanced at the ferocious-looking little yellow feather on Shao Qin's shoulder. Then he shifted his gaze to Xiao Chen and asked unhurriedly. After the initial panic, Xiao Chen had already calmed down. He replied indifferently, "How can a major character like Senior have anything to do with me? If Senior has anything to say, just say it. This Junior is all ears." The purple-clad Marquis did not say anything. However, those old men were startled. To think that Xiao Chen dared to speak to a greater heavenly Emperor Wu like that. As long as the other party wanted to, the purple-clad Marquis could instantly kill Xiao Chen in one breath. The difference in strength between the two was like heaven and earth, like clouds and mud. Any technique, will or martial technique, would be like fleeting clouds before the purple-clad Marquis. "Indeed, you are certain that I do not dare to kill you." Who knew? The purple-clad Marquis would laugh when he heard this, looking incredibly amiable. However, after a while his expression turned cold. He said in a frosty voice, "However, you are just seeking trouble by showing off your pride before a greater heavenly emperor." With each word, the purple-clad Marquis's expression turned colder. The entire Heavenly Star Island started to tremble intensely as he spoke. The clouds pressed down like the sky was falling. When the purple-clad Marquis finished speaking, an overwhelming pressure bore down on Xiao Chen. The air nearly froze. Everyone could feel Purple Marquis's monstrous rage, and they trembled in fear, not even daring to breathe loudly. It was true that Purple Marquis couldn't kill Xiao Chen, but he could teach him a lesson and beat him up. As long as Xiao Chen didn't die, there wouldn't be too much trouble. Xiao Chen's attitude was indeed asking for trouble. The group of old men all thought that he was courting death. In front of the great emperor, one should display humility. How could one act so casually? This was simply a great disrespect, and one could only blame oneself for any consequences. Despite the terrifying atmosphere, Xiao Chen did not show any signs of backing down. He said in a neither servile nor overbearing manner, "If you have something to say, just say it. I will listen and do my best to help. But if you want to rely on your status and strength to teach a junior an unreasonable lesson, then I, Xiao Chen, am not a pushover." Ha ha ha. When Purple Marquis heard that, he guffawed like he heard something extremely funny. He said, "If not for the Thunder King supporting me, I would be able to flick you to death with one finger. Killing you would be as easy as killing an ant. Why can't I bully you? I'll be honest. You killed my Purple Marquis's son. Although I cannot kill you now, if I do not beat you half to death today, it will be hard for me to swallow this frustration." With a flip of his hand, Xiao Chen caught that golden tail feather between two fingers. When he drove it with all his might, it gave off a blazing aura. A golden solar flame formed a thick pillar of fire that soared into the sky from Xiao Chen's body, piercing through the clouds. The blazing light was too bright, plunging the surroundings into darkness. Only this pillar of fire soared into the sky, burning fiercely. This is the expression of Purple Marquis, who was preparing to make a move, slowly turned grave. He stared at the golden tail feather between Xiao Chen's fingers. This commotion shocked the others as well. To think that Xiao Chen intended to make a move against a greater heavenly martial emperor. Was he crazy? As a greater heavenly emperor Wu, Purple Marquis could level Heavenly Star Island with one thought. However, at this moment, he felt a great threat from that tiny feather. Purple Marquis swept his gaze across the golden crow. When he saw that the little golden crow also had two golden tail feathers that stood out from the crowd, he suddenly understood. Now that he understood what Xiao Chen was holding, his heart sank. He said softly, "Golden tail feather, a life-saving technique passed down by the golden crow race." "Xiao Chen, you really give me many surprises. To think that the golden crow holy beast would give you one of its most precious items. However, if you think that this thing can scare me, then you are too naive. I guarantee that if you dare to make a move, you will be the one at a disadvantage in the end." Bathed in the golden pillar of fire, Shao Chun held the golden tail feather between two fingers. He said indifferently, "That's right. I will be the one at a disadvantage. Even if I use this golden tail feather, I will only be able to injure you severely. However, I will lose a life-saving trump card and will still be beaten half to death by you. No matter how you look at it, the losses outweigh the gains. However, there are some things in this world that cannot be determined by whether you suffer a loss or not. Right is right and wrong is wrong. Your son came to my Heavenly Star Island to cause trouble, killing the residents of my Heavenly Star Island, injuring my brothers, and humiliating my friends. His death is not to be regretted." The moment Purple Marquis said that, there was a huge commotion. The 8 old men felt their legs go soft. They finally understood why Purple Marquis was so angry. It turned out that Shao Chun actually killed his son. The son of a martial emperor died at Shao Chun's hands. After killing a martial emperor's son, not only did Shao Chun show no intention of apologizing or begging for mercy, but he even confronted Purple Marquis. No wonder Purple Marquis disregarded his status and wanted to personally teach Shao Chun a lesson, saying that he would beat Shao Chun half to death. "I am not in the wrong. The one in the wrong is your son. Even if you came personally, it would be impossible for me, Shao Chun, to apologize. Wrong is wrong, right is right. Since you dare to make a move on me, I dare to risk my life to accompany you. I believe that your enemies would be very happy to see a severely injured Purple Marquis." Shao Chun did not show any fear in the face of danger. He stared at Purple Marquis and argued for what was right, neither servile nor overbearing. Shao Chun was not trying to be a hero or being arrogant. However, there were some things that he needed to persevere on. There were some beliefs that he absolutely could not waver on. Shao Chun could not lose his principles just because the other party had a good father. He could not lower his head and admit his mistakes. He would rather break than bend his pride. For some reason, when Shao Chun said those words, it gave others a misconception. Purple Marquis, who was wearing purple dragon robes and battle armor, a bona fide martial emperor with a surging aura, seemed to be much weaker than Shao Chun's. Lan Xiaobai, who was at the side, felt his blood boil. A flame burned in his chest. When he faced Purple Marquis' strong aura, he did his best to take a step forward and guffawed. "Shao Chun, having a brother like you in this life is worth it." Then Lan Xiaobai turned to Purple Marquis and shouted, "Purple Marquis, your son died because of me. If you want to humiliate Shao Chun, you will have to do it over my corpse. In the future, my Azura race will definitely have seniors who will seek justice for you." Lan Xiaobai had a hard time saying these words. Before the might of a martial emperor, he had to use all his strength and clench his teeth to say each word. However, Lan Xiaobai had to say it. Shao Chun killed Purple Marquis' son because of Lan Xiaobai. Today, when a martial emperor came, Shao Chun blocked all of them by himself, not lowering his head or bending his back, facing a martial emperor. He, Lan Xiaobai, would not be a coward either. Me too. Purple Marquis, if you want to humiliate elder brother Shao Chun, you will have to do it over Yu's corpse. I, Jinlin, am willing to sacrifice my life to accompany you. I, Yu Chenxi, will not stand by and watch you humiliate senior brother Shao. Me too. The pillar of flame soaring into the sky from Shao Chun's body was like a beacon in the darkness, gathering everyone on Heavenly Star Island. All of them showed rage on their faces as they looked at Purple Marquis without fear. More people gathered. Aside from the cultivators of Heavenly Star Island, the ordinary residents came out as well. Countless pairs of eyes stared coldly at purple-clad Marquis in the darkness. Everyone was of one mind, willing to block this calamity for Shao Chun. When the voices merged together, everyone felt a hot-bloodedness surge in their bodies. To Purple Marquis, these people were all ants. As long as he wanted to, he could easily kill them all, not leaving a single one alive. However, Purple Marquis had never experienced such a situation in his life. Since the day he stepped onto the martial Dao, he had never seen such a scene that shook his soul. What kind of person could make these millions of people walk out of the darkness, threaten to die, and disregard their own safety? The 8 old men were all dumbfounded. They had not expected that after a martial emperor appeared, so many people from Heavenly Star Island would step forward. As expected, the scene of the purple-clad marquis beating Xiao Chen half to death did not happen. Instead, Xiao Chen was enveloped by the formless energy field. Instead, he was completely suppressed by Heavenly Star Island, unable to say anything for a long time. Of course, Purple Marquis could not possibly kill all these people. He was not an evil cultivator and was not that deranged. However, such a situation surpassed his expectations. After he returned from the starry heavens, he heard the news of his son's death. Purple Marquis had only wanted to come to Heavenly Star Island to stand up for his son, to teach Xiao Qin a ruthless lesson and make him apologize. Who would have thought that such a scene would occur? Xiao Qin, you are indeed capable. This Marquis has to admit that your rise and fame are not exaggerated at all. However, you should know that before a martial emperor, even 10 times the number of people before you are nothing. Purple Marquis muttered to himself for a while before continuing. If I want to hurt you, no matter how many people you have, you will not be able to stop me. As long as you apologize to me for today's matter, I, Purple Marquis, will keep my word. In the future, I will not seek trouble for you. Just take it that my son is not as skilled as you. When the 8 old men heard this, they were greatly startled. The Purple Marquis, who swept through the Western Sea, was actually forced to take a step back by Xiao Qin. If word of this got out, no one would believe it. Xiao Chen's white robes flickered with a golden light as he said calmly, "Since I am not in the wrong, why should I apologize? Any senior who has stepped on the Emperor's road is worthy of my, Xiao Chen's, respect. That includes Senior Purple Marquis. However, it is still the same thing. There are some things where right is right and wrong is wrong. Along the way, Xiao Qin has adhered to this principle. He will not change it in this life or regret it even in death. If you want to make a move, Xiao Qin is willing to welcome you at any time." Chapter 1137. Holding the plume feather in his right hand, Xiao Qin did not change his principles because of purple-clad Marquis' concession. He prepared to toss the plume feather at the other party, not hesitating to take him down with him. How hateful! Purple-clad Marquis roared in his heart. He had never felt so sullen and conflicted like this before. It was not only because of the plume feather in Xiao Chen's hand that he feared, but also because of Xiao Chen's persistence, which purple-clad Marquis found extremely terrifying. Since ancient times, perhaps there had been someone more outstanding than Xiao Chen among the outstanding talents of the past. However, this unyielding character, as well as this pointless persistence, was probably the only one who had ever done it before and would never be able to do it in the future. Good, good, good. After saying good 3 times in a row, purple-clad Marquis made his decision. He was no longer willing to waste time with Xiao Qin here. He said coldly, "Hand over my son's corpse, and I will let you off for now." The plume feather circled around Xiao Qin and absorbed the pillar of fire soaring into the sky. The darkness disappeared, and sunlight shone down once more. Everyone from Heavenly Star Island revealed a smile on their faces. They had won. "Xiao Bai, hand the corpse to purple-clad Marquis," Xiao Qin said after putting away the plume feather. "Wait, purple-clad Marquis, since you know that you are in the wrong, I cannot let you take the corpse away for nothing." Just as Lan Xiaobai was about to make a move, 2 people suddenly appeared in the damaged hall, one old and one young. Even purple-clad Marquis had not noticed these 2 people. Everyone's gazes focused on the old man who spoke. They were startled. This was actually another greater heavenly Emperor Wu. When Lan Xiaobai and Yu saw the old man and the young man's faces clearly, they revealed expressions of extreme joy. That young man was none other than the Azura race's Lan Tianji. After such a long time, he finally returned. He even brought a greater celestial emperor, Wu of the Shura tribe, with him. Actually, if one thought about it, it was easy to guess. Apart from the Azure race, who else would be able to appear silently in front of Purple Marquis? When purple-clad Marquis saw the old man's appearance, his expression changed as he recognized him. "You are Lan Chaofeng, the Flying Snow Mountain Manor's former first rank on the Heaven Series ranking of assassins." The Flying Snow Mountain Manor was a mysterious assassin organization in the Kunlun realm. Any cultivator could become an assassin there. You could choose to reveal your identity, or you could choose to hide it. Most people were afraid of trouble, so they only used a code name. Only a small number of people had no qualms about using their real identity, or they wanted to become famous in the first place. These people were mostly loose cultivators. Completing assassin missions of a certain difficulty would earn them points to upgrade their level. Among them, the Heaven Series Assassin was the highest rank in the Flying Snow Manor. As long as one became a Heaven Series Assassin, every time they took action, they would receive a sky-high reward. However, if one wanted to become a Heaven Series Assassin, the most basic requirement was to have Emperor Wu's cultivation. After that, one had to go through a series of tests before one could be officially conferred the title of a Heaven Series Assassin. One of the tests was to kill 5 Emperor Wu. Just thinking about it made one feel that it was as difficult as ascending to heaven. After becoming Emperor Wu and cultivating the heart of an emperor, he was already very difficult to kill. It was not strange for Emperor Wu to fall. However, it was extremely difficult to truly kill Emperor Wu. Right now, the number of Heaven Series assassins in the entire Flying Snow Mountain Manor could be counted on 2 hands. Every one of them was unfathomable, inspiring fear in others. Ordinary people would not know the identities of these Heaven Series assassins. They might not even have heard of them. However, in Emperor Wu's circle, once one's strength reached a certain level, this was no secret. Due to the Azura race's innate talent in space, they had an innate advantage in being assassins. In reality, many famous experts were Azura race cultivators. This ordinary-looking old man before Shao Chen was actually the top rank of the Heaven Series assassin ranking. He could not help but tremble in fear. The ordinary-looking Lan Chaofeng smiled faintly and said, "I have not made a move in many years." Unexpectedly, the purple-clad Marquis in the distant, heavenly starry ocean has heard of me. How surprising! The purple-clad Marquis smiled coldly to himself. At least 10 Emperor Wus had died at the hands of this old man. In Emperor Wu's circle, this fellow's name was even more horrifying than several sovereign martial emperors. He was known as the Life Reaper Azura. Fortunately, this fellow had not taken any missions for several hundred years, slowly fading out of their circle. However, Lan Chaofeng had not expected to meet the person that Emperor Wu did not want to meet in this rundown place. After not seeing Lan Chaofeng for several hundred years, not only did this fellow not die, but he even became a greater heavenly Emperor Wu. His cultivation was even deeper than Lan Chaofeng's. When Lan Chaofeng was a minor heavenly Emperor Wu, he could already threaten some greater heavenly Emperor Wus. Now that Lan Chaofeng was a greater heavenly Emperor Wu, his cultivation was even higher than purple-clad Marquis. Lan Chaofeng was even less of a match for him. The purple-clad Marquis felt very depressed. This matter was already in the bag. First, Shao Chen's unyielding pride forced him to give in again and again. Now there was this Lan Chaofeng. Even if Shao Chen wanted to take the corpse, there would be many variables. The purple-clad Marquis raged in his heart. He looked at Lan Chaofeng and said, "What exactly do you want? This has nothing to do with you, right?" Lan Chaofeng replied indifferently, "It's very simple. Since you admit that you are in the wrong, then apologize to my disciple on behalf of your son. Then apologize to this little brother. If you do not want to apologize, fine. Just throw down 10 million black astral coins. Otherwise, you can forget about taking your son's corpse away. Tyrannical, be it the many cultivators of Heavenly Star Island or the few old men outside, they could not help exclaiming in their hearts. Lan Chaofeng's son died, and he came to seek trouble. Based on the current situation, he would have to apologize to Heavenly Star Island instead. This mysterious old man who suddenly appeared was truly tyrannical. Lan Chaofeng, don't go overboard. The purple-clad Marquis immediately became enraged. He did not care about 10 million black astral coins. However, he could not afford to lose face like this. Haha. Indeed, after not making a move for 1,000 years, the title of life, Reaping Azura, is just a symbol in the eyes of some people. Lan Chaofeng smiled faintly, and an ancient black coin appeared in his hand. That ancient coin seemed to have a life of its own. It jumped around and spun around his fingers. This was clearly a very simple action, but it dazzled everyone, making them dizzy. It was only then that the crowd noticed this unprepossessing old man. This unprepossessing old man had a pair of extremely perfect hands. This was because when the ancient coin jumped around, no one felt any energy fluctuations at all. This old man used his nimble fingers to perform all sorts of incredible actions. Seeing the mysterious ancient coin jump around, purple-clad Marquis's heart sank. According to rumor, when that coin stopped jumping around, Lan Chaofeng would make his move. According to an even more exaggerated rumor, when one saw Lan Chaofeng spinning the ancient coin, one would no longer think of fleeing, as one would not be able to. When the black astral coin stopped jumping around, one would no longer have the chance to counterattack, as one would no longer have the chance. One would just quietly wait for death. In Lan Chaofeng's long life of killing, countless famous people had used their lives to verify the veracity of this rumor. This was where the title of life, Reaping Azura, came from. Purple-clad Marquis's thoughts raced. In an instant, he thought of thousands of methods. However, none of them could allow him to escape unscathed from Lan Chaofeng. Bang! With a flip of his hand, a pile of black astral coins appeared in the dilapidated hall. Then, purple-clad Marquis said, "Give me my son's corpse." Lan Xiaobai, who had been prepared for a long time, waved his hand and tossed out a coffin from his spatial ring. Purple-clad Marquis put away the coffin without even looking at it. Then he turned around and tore space, quickly leaving this place. Lan Chaofeng, who used only one coin to force purple-clad Marquis away, smiled faintly. Without anyone seeing Lan Chaofeng do anything, the mysterious ancient coin in his hand vanished. As Huan Jintian watched purple-clad Marquis leave, cheers rang out in Heavenly Star Island. Even someone as strong as purple-clad Marquis suffered a great loss on Heavenly Star Island, not daring to have any other thoughts. This made every cultivator who stood up for Shao Qin feel incomparably proud. There was a sense of honor in everyone's hearts. Blue Dragon King, I forgot something earlier. You said that you came to visit Heavenly Star Island. In the end, you came empty-handed. This is not very polite. You must accept these 5 million black astral coins. I'm getting old and my memory is bad. Blue Dragon King, please don't mind me. I can reluctantly accept these 5 million black astral coins as a gift. This old man will make up for it when I pay a formal visit in the future. The few old men who were preparing to leave quickly ran over. Their faces brimmed with smiles as they left the 5 million black astral coins, wanting Shao Qin to accept them. These old men did not even give Shao Qin a chance to refuse. After tossing down the black astral coins, they quickly left. That was then, and this was now. Earlier, Shao Qin only made them feel some fear. In the future, they could not afford to offend Heavenly Star Island. However, when they saw how united the many cultivators of Heavenly Star Island were, how boldly Shao Qin dared to face off against a martial emperor, and how mysterious the Azura race martial emperor was, All of this pointed to Heavenly Star Island's rise. Everything showed that Heavenly Star Island's rise was just around the corner. Currying favor with Heavenly Star Island in advance was the right thing to do. Xiao Chen's expression remained calm. He did not think much of this. Together with Lan Xiaobai, they quickly headed for that tyrannical Azura race martial emperor. If not for this old man's appearance, even if purple-clad Marquis was chased away by Xiao Qin, he would not be satisfied and would come back sooner or later. However, now he was scared away. In the future, even if Xiao Qin invited him, he would not dare to come casually. "How come I have never heard you mention your master?" Xiao Chen asked Lan Xiaobai, who was beside him as they walked. Lan Xiaobai's smile slowly faded as he recalled this matter. It seemed like he thought of some bad news. He said, 5 years ago, my master said that he was going to break through to Sovereign Martial Emperor. After that, there has been no news of him. Looking at it now, I'm afraid he failed. Breaking through to Sovereign Martial Emperor was not only extremely dangerous, but there was also only one chance. If one missed this chance, there would not be a second chance. There had never been a precedent since ancient times. Xiao Chen consoled, "It's fine. At the very least, he is still fine." Chapter 1138. Lan Xiaobai revealed a smile again. He nodded and said, Those who fail to break through to Sovereign Martial Emperor lose their lives. The fact that Master survived is already the best news." As they spoke, the two officially met with Lan Tianji and Lan Xiaofeng. Xiao Qin performed a cupped fist salute and said, "Many thanks to seniors' help this time. I cannot thank you enough." The unprepossessing Lan Xiaofeng smiled and said, "You are too humble. Even if I did not appear, you would have more or less settled the matter." In front of the greater celestial Emperor Wu, a young man who dares to uphold his own principles, this is the first time I've seen someone like you. Furthermore, you were the one who stood up for Xiaobai in the first place. That's why you attracted all this trouble. Furthermore, you are the one who took the blame. I should be the one saying thank you. Tianqi and I are right. Xiaobai did not follow the wrong person. Lan Tianji smiled and said, "Master never believed it. Given Xiaobai's character, how could he be willing to follow someone of the younger generation? Now that I personally saw it, I have no choice but to believe it." Lan Xiaobai was more concerned about breaking through to Sovereign Martial Emperor. He asked, "Master, how is your breakthrough to Sovereign Martial Emperor going?" The moment Xiao Chen said this, Lan Tianji and Lan Xiaofeng could not hide their smiles. Xiao Chen and Lan Xiaobai immediately felt that something was wrong. There was probably something unexpected. How difficult is it for a martial emperor to be conferred king? Tianqi, just tell me. Lan Xiaofeng sighed, not willing to talk about this matter. Lan Tianji thought for a while and said it failed. The sovereign's tribulation is boundlessly horrifying. Master only has 20 to 30 years left to live. What? Upon hearing this, Lan Xiaobai and Xiao Chen's expressions changed drastically. They were lucky to have survived the failed king's conferment, but they did not expect that there would be such serious consequences. Lan Xiaofeng smiled gently and said, "Everyone dies. Even someone as strong as the Qing Emperor and the strongest person in the world, the Thunder King, cannot avoid it. Without becoming a martial god, no one can avoid it. Don't mind it too much. This old man has lived long enough." "Master." Lan Xiaobai's voice sounded somewhat choked. Lan Tianji had not come for so long. He was probably taking care of Lan Xiaofeng, who failed his tribulation. Little did he expect that when he finally managed to meet Lan Tianji, he would receive such a piece of news. Lan Xiaofeng felt moved in his heart. He smiled and scolded, "It's fine. Work hard. I might be able to see the day when you and Tianqi are conferred kings." Xiao Qin, who had been listening to their conversation, suddenly had a thought. He asked, "Senior, Have you consumed natural treasures that can increase your lifespan? Lan Xiaofeng smiled bitterly and said, "This natural treasure that can increase one's lifespan is something that can only be found and not sought. When I was young, I obtained a few, but I didn't pay much attention to it and gave it to some old friends. Now I can't find it no matter how hard I try. Some things weren't worth much, and they weren't even used normally. However, when he really needed it, he realized that it was something that could only be chanced upon. No matter how hard he searched, he could not find it. Xiao Qin still had 2 longevity fruits in his hand. He quickly took one out and said, 'This is a longevity fruit. It can extend one's lifespan by 100 years. If Senior cannot find a better natural treasure, you can consume this.' The few of them all showed joy on their faces. Unexpectedly, Xiao Qin had such a treasure that could not be sought after. 'Xiao Bai, help your master keep it. I have no use for this thing, anyway.' Xiao Qin handed the longevity fruit to Lan Tianji for him to pass to his master. Xiao Qin had a longevity fruit that could give others 100 years of lifespan. However, he could not break free from the nightmare of 4 years. Lan Xiaofeng received the longevity fruit from Xiaobai's hand and entered deep thought, like he was about to make a decision. After a while he said, "Originally, I planned to come to Heavenly Star Island to see Xiaobai before leaving, then go look for natural treasures that can extend one's lifespan. Since you gave me a longevity fruit, then this old man will stay here for a while. I can't keep watching others bully my 2 disciples." Xiao Qian rejoiced in his heart. Lan Xiaofeng's words meant that he agreed to stay on Heavenly Star Island. With an Azura emperor who could force the purple-clad Marquis to retreat, there was no need to worry about Heavenly Star Island's safety. Lan Xiaobai and Lan Tianji were equally happy that a senior like Lan Xiaofeng could remain on Heavenly Star Island. "Master, have you heard about what happened to Xiao Qin?" It was rare for Lan Xiaobai to meet a bona fide martial emperor. Furthermore, Lan Xiaofeng was his relative. He could not help but ask about Xiao Qin's matter. Lan Xiaofeng nodded. If the Blue Dragon King did not advance to martial emperor in 5 years, he had only 20 more years to live. For some reason, this news set the Kunlun continent abuzz. In nearly 1 month, it spread throughout the entire Kunlun continent, causing a huge commotion. Lan Tianji entered deep thought. Advancing to martial emperor in 5 years? That might not be impossible. Only 1 year has passed, and Xiao Qin already reached great perfection, blue-robed emperor. In this age of geniuses, any miracle can happen. As someone with experience, Lan Xiaofeng shook his head and said, "That is hard to say. As long as there are sufficient resources, advancing from small perfection blue-robed emperor to great perfection blue-robed emperor can be done quickly. Since ancient times, Xiao Qin's current cultivation speed is not considered very fast." Xiao Qin nodded and said, "I have no problems with resources. Can Senior give me some pointers on how to merge my soul with the heavenly seal and form the vague form of the heart of an emperor?" The great tribulation of wind and fire was still far away. Right now, Xiao Qin was most concerned about how to perfectly merge his soul with the heavenly seal. Lan Xiaofeng said, "Given the comprehension abilities of you outstanding talents, this stage is actually not difficult. You can clear it sooner or later. However, this requires a long time to test it out. Then, when the conditions are right, success will follow. Others will not be able to give you pointers. However, what you lack the most right now is time." Lan Xiaofeng's words hit the crucial point. This stage could stop 90% of blue-robed emperors. However, this 90% definitely did not include the outstanding talents with high comprehension abilities. Naturally, Xiao Qin was no exception. What he lacked was time. "Is there any way for me to clear this stage quickly?" Xiao Qin continued asking. "Perhaps in history, were there any people who used a very short time to perfectly merge their soul with the heavenly seal?" Lan Chaofeng thought carefully and shook his head. As far as I know, there were no such people. However, I only know the history of the Kunlun continent. This oceanic world might not necessarily not have such a person. Xiao Chen felt somewhat disappointed. It looked like he could not count on anyone else for this stage. It was as Elder Qin said, he could only rely on himself. 10 days later, the news of purple-clad Marquis running into a wall at Heavenly Star Island quickly spread throughout the entire Western Sea. The scene of Xiao Chun facing off with a martial emperor was described vividly, quickly spreading among the cultivators. A great perfection blue-robed emperor actually dared to face off with a martial emperor like purple-clad Marquis. In the end, he even managed to gain the upper hand. If not for many people verifying the authenticity of this news, no one would believe it. In the next 3 days, aside from the nearby sects, all the sects in the entire Western Sea came to visit. Even Qian Zongchao, whom Xiao Chen knocked back with a palm strike, came to apologize with heavy gifts. For a while, Heavenly Star Island became very prosperous. It finally gained a firm foothold in this chaotic, heavenly starry ocean. It would no longer be seen as an outsider. There would always be people coming to covet those subsidiary resource islands. Xiao Chen rejected all the social engagements and focused on cultivation, not letting these trivial matters disturb him. However, today he received a piece of news that made Xiao Chen come out of his closed-door cultivation room without any hesitation. Kim Tae-ho had returned from the Black Sea with the Green Dragon Chamber of Commerce's huge merchant ship. When Xiao Chen received news of Kim Tae-ho's return, he immediately came out of his state of silent cultivation. He had been tempted long ago and could not wait to go to the Black Sea. Xiao Chen met with Kim Tae-ho in a pavilion. Xiao Chen looked the same as before, adorned with jewels and glowing with health. He fanned himself with a golden folding fan, and the shrewdness of a merchant was written all over his face. However, Xiao Chen noticed a faint black line on Xiao Chen's forehead. It was like some kind of negative emotion had gathered together. Hee, Brother Xiao Chen, you are finally back, Kim Tae-ho immediately said with a smile when he saw Xiao Chen. The two chatted for a while. Then, Xiao Chen asked about the Black Sea and the development of the Green Dragon Chamber of Commerce. Finally, he asked about Ba Tu's situation. According to Kim Tae-ho's introduction, the Black Sea was not much smaller than the heavenly starry ocean. It was extremely vast, and the islands were even denser. According to legend, the islands of the Black Sea were originally a complete continent with many ancient factions and many legendary characters. Later on, for some reason, it shattered, resulting in the current situation. The islands were as densely packed as the stars in the sky. After tens of thousands of years of accumulation and transformation, the Black Sea had formed 5 major sea domains: the Blackwater Sea, the Black Wind Sea, the Black Cloud Sea, the Black Fire Sea, and the core sea domain, the Dark Sea. The Dark Sea had the richest resources in the entire oceanic world and the most fortuitous encounters. However, it also had the harshest natural environment in the entire oceanic world. The 2 words, Black Sea, lived up to its name. The entire sea domain was shrouded in boundless dark clouds all year round. The sky was always dark. No matter how piercing the sunlight was, it could not shine down. There was also a mysterious substance in the air that could affect a cultivator's mind, making them irritable, easily angered, and unable to control their murderous heart. Hence, the cultivators in the Black Sea all had fiery tempers. They were unreasonable, filled with hostility, and the entire sea domain was in chaos. However, it was easy to train experts here. Furthermore, they were all combat experts. When they fought, they would fight to the death. Just think about it. If a cultivator could maintain their original state of mind after living here for a long time and not be affected, just their mental state would surpass the cultivators of the other sea domains. As for the development of the Green Dragon Chamber of Commerce, when Kim Tae-ho talked about it, his eyebrows danced with joy, talking about it without end. His initial capital of 100 million black astral coins had already multiplied to 50 million black astral coins. The momentum was excellent. However, after hearing Xiao Chen's introduction of the 1 billion black astral coins in the Dragon's Gate treasure trove, Kim Tae-ho felt a blow to his confidence. Damn it, this fat lord has worked so hard for more than a year, but I still can't compare to you and a girl in 2 or 3 days. However, Xiao Chen turned around and smiled. About that, can you give this fat lord some more capital? There's simply too many goods in the Black Sea. Our merchant ships are clearly not enough. Chapter 1139. Xiao Chen scolded jokingly. Don't even think about it. Not only can I not give you black astral coins, but you can also use the resources that your merchant association earns to fund the construction of Heaven Dragon City. Kim Tae-ho opened his folding fan and said, hee hee, just joking. To this fat lord, money is just a bunch of numbers. What this fat lord enjoys is the process. These words were not false at all. If Kim Tae-ho craved riches and honor, the wealth he had in the Sky Dome realm was enough for him to enjoy for several lifetimes. Xiao Chen said after some thought, I will give you plenty of support as well. You can choose one of the subsidiary islands of Heavenly Star Island and make it an independent trading island for the Green Dragon Chamber of Commerce. As for the merchant ships, after Emo-chan has settled down at Black Flame Island, I will sell all the King-grade warships I refined to your merchant association. When Kim Tae-ho heard this, his eyes immediately sparkled. A smile bloomed on his face as he said, That is very generous. I will make a military pledge as well. Within 3 years, I will make the Green Dragon Chamber of Commerce the top merchant association in the Western Sea. Xiao Chan waved his hand and said, There is no need to make this military pledge. I believe in your ability. Our goal is not just the Western Sea, but the entire oceanic world. We also want to charge back to the Kunlun continent. We will trample on whoever smashed your signboard in the past, making them remove their own signboards. When Kim Tae-ho heard this, he thought back to how his signboards were smashed. A vicious look flashed in his eyes. When Xiao Chen saw this, he frowned slightly and said, Something is wrong with you. It seems like you cannot control your murderous heart. Kim Tae-ho nodded and said, After I return from the Black Sea, I need to rest for a month. Otherwise, it will be hard to guarantee that my heart will not change. Aside from the native cultivators, outsiders do not dare to stay in the Black Sea for long. Of course, this does not include some cultivators who want to temper their minds. Xiao Chan thought for a moment, then took off the Neptune headscarf from his forehead and handed it to Kim Tae-ho. This is the Neptune headscarf. You can wear it when you go to the Black Sea in the future. It will ensure that your heart will not change. Kim Tae-ho didn't take it. From your tone, it sounds like we're going to the Black Sea soon. You should keep it. Xiao Chen said seriously, My mental state has long since reached a state where it is impervious to ripples. The mysterious substance in the Black Sea is unable to affect me. Your cultivation is too far away from mine. Don't force yourself. The Neptune headscarf had endless uses, and Xiao Chen quite liked it. However, Kim Tae-ho obviously needed it more than him, so Xiao Chen didn't need to hide it. The Green Dragon Chamber of Commerce could develop so fast. The main reason was that Debao had opened up the Black Sea trade route and put in a lot of effort. In the end, Xiao Chen asked where Batu was before letting Kim Tae-ho rest. After Kim Tae-ho left, Xiao Chen slowly walked out of the room and arrived at the summit. He looked down and saw millions of workers laying the foundation for the future Heaven Dragon City. It was bustling with activity, under the arrangements of Emo-chan and Lan Xiaobai. Although there were many people, there was not much chaos in commanding them. Even farther away, the Emo clan's people on Black Flame Island were anxiously laying the foundation for the Dragon's Gates refining pavilion. Yu Chensi and the others were personally managing the various resource islands. The development of the entire Heavenly Star Island was very orderly. Furthermore, the Azura Emperor, Lan Chaofeng, presided over the islands. Heavenly Star Island's future was bright. "I really can't bear to leave," Xiaoqin muttered with a nostalgic expression in his eyes. However, no matter what, he had to leave for now. He had to seek his own fortuitous encounter, to find a way to merge his soul with the heavenly seal quickly and smoothly. Xiaoqin wanted to fight against heaven. Everyone believed that he, Xiaoqin, could not become a martial emperor. They were waiting to see him make a joke of himself, waiting to see how he would fall from the peak 5 years later. All the opponents he had defeated in the past were looking on coldly, waiting for that day to come. Fortuitous encounters could not fall by themselves at home. Xiaoqin could only go out and search for them, risking his life in the most dangerous places. Indecisiveness would only lead to chaos. Xiaoqin closed his eyes and took 3 deep breaths. When he opened his eyes again, there was no longer any fear or hesitation in them. Xiaoqin pushed off the ground and floated down the mountain peak. Then he started to say goodbye to his old friends. After looking around, Xiaoqin finally found Imochen. At this moment, Imochen's room was filled with piles of sketches and all sorts of books and information. In the somewhat messy room, Imochen continued to painstakingly draw her sketches. She did not even notice Xiaoqin's arrival. Imochen casually raised her head and saw Xiaoqin outside. Pleasant surprise flashed in her eyes. She stopped what she was doing and smiled. "What's wrong? You finally have time to come to my place?" Xiaoqin said, "Make a guess. I'll give you 3 chances." Imochen slapped her forehead and smiled bitterly. "This time, I really hope that I guessed wrong. However, you will have to leave in the end. Now that Heavenly Star Island is on the right track, you can leave in peace." Xiaoqin smiled. Indeed, he could not hide anything from the other party. There was no need for words between the two. After a short silence, Xiaoqin said, "Take care." Then he turned and left. "Don't forget, you promised me that you would personally see me remove my veil," Imochen said as tears glistened in her eyes. Xiaoqin's body paused slightly. However, he did not turn his head back. He smiled and said, "Don't worry. I, Xiaoqin, never go back on my promises. I will definitely live on and see you personally remove your veil. You are the top beauty of the Cloud Sea domain. If I don't see you, I will not be satisfied even if I die." After saying that, Xiaoqin left with large strides. Only his figure remained, slowly disappearing from Imochen's hazy vision. What was waiting for Xiaoqin in the mysterious Black Sea? Whether he could find the secret method to break through to great perfection of the blue-robed emperor, everything was unknown. After taking this step, what awaited Xiaoqin was a new journey. On the path to emperor, I dare to fight against the heavens. From Heavenly Star Island to the Black Sea, the first stop was the Blackwater Sea, one of the 6 great sea domains. This sea domain was as large as the entire Western Sea. Riding the Flood Dragon war chariot, Xiaoqin got Ao Jiao to drive the chariot for him as he soared above the clouds. Inside the war chariot, Xiaoqin continued to cultivate, not wasting any time. A cold jade prayer mat floated on the soft bed in the war chariot. Xiaoqin sat cross-legged on it. 5 different colored lights slowly spun around him. Each clump of light gave off a different feeling. Massacre, death, destruction, despair, and grief. They were all different. That was right. These lights were the 5 thrones that Xiaoqin had collected. They contained 5 different high-level states. Ordinary people could be called geniuses as long as they had one state and raised it to a will. With 2, they could move unhindered. With 3, they could be called an absolute genius. However, Xiaoqin had 5. If he collected the Pain Throne and the Destruction Throne, he would have 7. There were too many. Xiaoqin did not intend to raise all of them to wills. That would waste too much time. Xiao Chun intended to wait until he had collected all 7 wills before merging them into the state of cycle. At that time, he would raise the state of cycle to the will of cycle. This was what he needed to do after he became Emperor Wu. As for now, he could not give up on these different states. He snapped his right hand. The roof of the war chariot slowly descended, and Xiao Qin sat cross-legged on the prayer mat. The scene before him suddenly opened up, and he looked into the distance. With a thought, the purple lightning talisman that represented the will of thunder sent out 4 beams of light, forming a seemingly invisible, sharp saber. This was the form of Xiao Chen's small perfection saber soul. The lightning-attributed energy in the saber soul had not faded yet, crackling with electricity. Xiao Chen stretched out his hand, and a strand of saber chi with electricity surrounding it shot out from his fingertip. It was like a bolt of lightning tearing through the sky in the blink of an eye and striking a rank 8 spirit beast 5 kilometers away. The saber chi with the lightning-attributed energy first chopped the spirit beast in half. After that, the lightning-attributed energy exploded, turning the remaining 2 halves of the spirit beast's corpse into charcoal. When the wind blew, the charcoal turned into black powder. This was the additional might of the lightning-attributed energy infused into the saber soul. In the end, the standard of a bladesman's strength was still the saber soul. Pu Xiai, Little Yellow Feather, who was on Ao Jiao's back, was not to be outdone. It opened its mouth and spat out a golden flame, directly burning the other rank 8 spirit beast to ashes. Then it spread its wings and looked at Xiao Qin cockily. "Be good, Little Yellow Feather. Xiao Qin is testing his moves. Don't disturb him," Ao Jiao, who was riding on the deep-sea flood dragon, said with a smile as she rubbed Little Yellow Feather's head. Xiao Chun smiled and tossed an astral core to Little Yellow Feather. Then he started testing his moves. These were all high-rank states. Although they had not been raised to wills, they were of a higher grade than ordinary flames and ice. Xiao Qin planned to merge these different wills with his saber soul. The saber soul would form the massacre saber soul, the destruction saber soul, the despair saber soul, and the death saber soul. When facing different enemies, the saber soul could be chosen accordingly. Sometimes, Xiao Chen's strongest lightning saber soul might not be effective against some opponents with startling defenses. However, these other saber souls would catch him off guard. When Xiao Qin absorbed the light of the state of death into his sea of consciousness, his mind was immediately filled with all sorts of emotions of death. After a while, Xiao Chen adjusted to them. Xiao Chen's eyes turned gray, representing death. He flicked out a strand of saber chi from his fingertip. This time, the speed of the saber chi was significantly slower. One could clearly see the trajectory of the saber chi as it tore through the sky. When the saber chi struck a rank 8 spirit beast 5 kilometers away, it did not split it in half. However, when the saber chi penetrated deep into it, the power of death slowly seeped out. The vitality of the spirit beast's body slowly dissipated. A moment later, its withered body fell from the sky. Xiao Qin entered deep thought as he muttered, "Its might is much weaker than the lightning saber soul. However, it is also due to the lack of compatibility. After familiarizing myself with it, when I meet some special opponents, I can achieve unexpected results." Following that, Xiao Qin tested the might of the various saber souls. Then he connected them with one another, tempering their compatibility. With the continuous tempering, he could be considered to be cultivating his saber soul. A 40% comprehended saber soul was rather frightening among the blue-robed emperor's saber souls. Most bladesmen could barely raise their saber intent to the level of a saber soul. They could not even condense a physical form. Chapter 1140. However, there was still a lot of room for improvement. Cultivating more would not be bad for his strength. After all, Xiao Qin was a bladesman by nature. His saber soul was the most important. 7 days later, the clouds below the flood dragon war chariot slowly dimmed until it was completely dark. Xiao Qin knew that he had reached the edge of the Black Sea. The Blackwater Sea should not be far away. After thinking for a while, Xiao Qin put away the flood dragon war chariot and prepared to travel the rest of the way alone. After all, there were many experts in the Black Sea. This chaotic and resource-rich sea region was very tempting. There were countless experts here. Xiao Qin was far from strong enough to move about freely. It was best to keep a low profile. According to the information that Kim Taeho obtained, Batu was not in the Blackwater Sea, but in the Dark Sea, the core of the entire Black Sea. Hence, Xiao Qin did not intend to stay in this Blackwater Sea for long. If nothing unexpected happened, he would just treat it as a place to stay and familiarize himself with the environment of the Black Sea. After piercing through the clouds, Xiao Qin, who was in the air, immediately felt the various negative emotions that came with his breathing: irritation, rage, massacre, and many others. His heart did not change. His saber soul flickered, and Xiao Qin used his strong willpower to eliminate all these negative emotions, leaving none in his body. Dang! 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 Before Xiao Qin landed on the surface of the sea, the sounds of fighting entered his ears. Squinting, Xiao Qin discovered that several merchant ships of a merchant association were being attacked. The merchant group was rather large, and the merchant ships were all Sage-grade. There were 10 of them, and the flagship was a King-grade warship. However, the situation was not good. The densely packed, small pirate ships surrounded the entire merchant group. Figures radiating baleful auras leaped and charged at the merchant ships. A ferocious-looking pirate was currently ganging up on a middle-aged man on the merchant ship's flagship, gaining the upper hand. Xiao Qin had heard about the chaos of the Black Sea long ago. However, he had not expected to run into a merchant group being robbed right at the edge. After observing for a while, Xiao Qin concluded that this group of pirates was not very strong. The pirate leader fighting on the flagship was only as strong as the great perfection blue-robed emperor. A moment later, he made his decision. He wasn't the kind of idiot who would rush over to save a bunch of strangers regardless of the situation when he saw something like this. However, if it was within his power, he would still lend a helping hand. After all, this group of robbing pirates did not look like good people. Xiao Qin's figure flashed. His white robes looked spotless as he carried the lunar shadow saber and landed in the sky above the flagship. When the two sides saw the sudden appearance of this person, their expressions changed at the same time, and they both stopped fighting and retreated. The difference was that the burly middle-aged man revealed an expression of surprise, whereas the leader of the island was filled with killing intent and endless anger. The pirate leader wielded a heavy scarlet dragon-tooth saber. He looked at Xiao Qin and said, "Where did this brat come from? Do you know the rules of the Black Sea? If you see pirates robbing and dare to help, you will be wanted by all the pirates." Xiao Qin was slightly taken aback, but he laughed in his heart. Interesting. In other places, pirates were wanted, but in this place, the rules were reversed. The pirates held the upper hand. To think that they could order others to be wanted. Little brother, this is indeed the rule of the Black Sea. Once you are wanted, you will find it hard to move anywhere in the 5 seas. It is good that you have the intention. Don't get yourself involved. The middle-aged man could tell that Xiao Qin's cultivation was not low. Given his young age, he should be an outstanding talent of a holy land or a noble clan. Since the middle-aged man did not know the rules of the Black Sea, he sighed and tried to persuade Xiao Qin to leave. "Since you know the rules, then scram!" The pirate leader said rudely with a cold smile. Xiao Qin said indifferently, "This is the first time I've heard of this rule. However, if you die, I'm afraid we won't be able to send out the wanted posters." The pirate leader laughed loudly and said, "You are already a great perfection blue-robed emperor at such a young age. You must be the successor of a large faction or a holy land. I saw that it was not easy for you to cultivate, so I was being more polite to you. To think that you became so arrogant. Don't treat the Black Sea as some other place. I will only say one thing to you. The blue-robed emperors here are not to be trifled with. The pirate leader shouted coldly and charged at Xiao Qin while holding the dragon-toothed saber. The pirate leader's eyes turned scarlet. Everywhere he passed, wolf howls resounded. A huge scarlet wolf image appeared behind him. Unexpectedly, this pirate leader was a fiend race member. His bloodline seemed to have mutated. He was not a pure heavenly wolf and was even more powerful. This saber strike had an overwhelming aura, and the wolf howls were even more horrifying. It was incredibly ferocious. Just the baleful aura that flowed out was enough to make one tremble in fear. Dang! No one saw how Xiao Qin moved, but there was a melodious dragon roar. He instantly drew the lunar shadow saber and blocked the dragon-tooth saber flying at him. The dragon roar clashed with the scarlet wolf howls. Unexpectedly, their auras were equal. The other party's scarlet wolf was not intimidated by Xiao Chen's dragon might. Xiao Chen's eyes lit up. It was said that in this oceanic world, the Black Sea was the best place for the blue-robed emperor to cultivate. In order to strengthen themselves, the blue-robed emperors of various places would come here for experiential training. Furthermore, an even greater number of fugitives resided in the Black Sea all year round, making the situation of the Black Sea even more terrifying. The blue-robed emperor, which was rarely seen in the outside world, could be said to be a common sight here. Now, it looked like the rumors were true. This great perfection blue-robed emperor before him gave Xiao Qin a very different feeling. Compared to the great perfection blue-robed emperors raised in sex, this one was much more powerful. However, the more powerful, the better. That way it would be more challenging. Xiao Qin turned around and pulled out the lunar shadow saber. At the same time, he executed Flawless Bright Moon. A gentle moonlight appeared on the slender saber. You have some strength. No wonder you dare to be so arrogant. The pirate leader laughed strangely and spun around in the air. With every spin, he sent out a saber strike. Every time the saber light flashed, a wolf image would appear. In the blink of an eye, the pirate leader had spun around 100 times. After sending out 100 saber strikes and 100 wolves, the pirate leader completely suppressed Xiao Chen's Flawless Bright Moon, forcing Xiao Qin to continuously retreat 100 steps. Brat, now you know that there are some problems that you should not bother with. Haha. However, there is no medicine for regret in this world. Defeat for me and hunt the world. The pirate leader laughed maniacally and suddenly revealed his true form. He turned into a scarlet wolf that stood upright and roared ferociously. Then he swung his saber vigorously, and hundreds of wolf-shaped saber lights immediately flew at Xiao Qin. The sharp aura was like a pack of wolves on a hunt, galloping across a boundless grassland with an irresistible force. As for Xiao Qin, he was like a lamb waiting to be slaughtered. Xiao Qin narrowed his eyes and discovered the extraordinariness of this move. Every scarlet wolf was completely solid. Furthermore, there seemed to be qi and blood flowing in the scarlet wolves' bodies, surging with essence. Every one of them continuously absorbed the berserk massacre qi unique to the air of the Black Sea. With every second that passed, their bodies grew larger. By the time they arrived in front of Xiao Qin, each and every one of them was as big as a mountain. Their bodies had mutated to an extremely terrifying extent. Their fur had turned into sharp blood blades, and their eyes were scarlet red. It's over. Seeing the pack of wolves swallow up Xiao Qin, the middle-aged man from the merchant group, the blue-robed emperor, revealed a bitter expression. He was somewhat surprised that this mission would be so difficult. It looked like not only would he fail, but he would also implicate an outstanding young talent. Xiao Qin had just entered the periphery of the Blackwater Sea when he ran into the infamous Blood Wolf pirate group. He did not know what goods they were transporting this time. Boom! Just when the middle-aged man thought that Xiao Qin, surrounded by the pack of wolves, would be devoured until not even his bones remained. 100 bolts of intense lightning suddenly shot out from the pack of wolves. A terrifying saber intent could be felt in every bolt of lightning. This is a saber soul. The saber chi has its own soul and also contains the might of the will of thunder. Otherwise, the saber intent that erupts out would not be so horrifying. The middle-aged man muttered to himself, his eyes filled with shock. What kind of genius bladesman is this? This saber soul is probably no weaker than the famous bladesmen of the older generation. Miserable howls resounded, and the pack of wolves howled in pain. Their momentum immediately shattered. Xiao Chen did not stop moving, continuing to attack, preparing to break this move in one go. Strands of azure, dragon-shaped saber chi flew out of Xiao Chen's body. Eventually, 18 blue dragons surrounded Xiao Chen. The dragons roared ferociously, causing the sky to change color. Lightning flashed, thunder roared, and all sorts of mysterious phenomena flashed. Subduing dragon profound slash. When Xiao Chen chopped out, the 18 blue dragons merged into the saber, forming an azure saber light that reached the sky. The hundreds of blood wolves injured by the electric saber chi were immediately chopped into pieces by this horrifying saber light, like the autumn wind sweeping away fallen leaves. Blood could be seen connecting the blood wolves' bodies. After the electric light exploded, the blood wolves were completely severed. This was already beyond the scope of a mysterious phenomenon. Xiao Chen guessed that the pirate leader's world Hunt, the pirate group, probably infused his chi and blood into the saber technique. If an ordinary person executed this move, they would die from blood loss before they could finish executing it. Only the pirate leader, who could turn into a blood wolf, could execute this move. The saber light did not lose momentum, continuing to hack at the pirate leader. The pirate leader held his saber horizontally to block. However, the might of Xiao Chen's move was very great. It contained all the mysteries of the dragon subduing slash. How could the pirate leader, who had lost a large amount of chi and blood, block it? Cassier. The dragon tooth saber instantly broke. The saber light continued to hack down, chopping the pirate leader in half. However, the pirate leader was not dead yet. The two halves of his body were still connected by blood, doing their best to merge back together. Given time, the two halves might even be able to merge back together. This life form is really tenacious. However, since you already made a move, I cannot let you live. Executing thunder dragon steps, Xiao Chen arrived on a dragon amid lightning flashes and thunder roars. He infused the power of the lightning saber soul into his saber and hacked at the pirate leader's body 9 times in a row. After the 9 saber strikes, electric light burst out, and the pirate leader's body turned into charcoal. He could no longer revive. With their leader killed, the remaining pirates immediately retreated in a fluster. The crisis of the merchant group was temporarily resolved. Xiao Chen sheathed his saber and suddenly frowned. He felt a gaze filled with heavy killing chi from 50 kilometers away. Even from 50 kilometers away, it made his hair stand on end. Chapter 1141. The owner of this gaze was at least a consummation blue-robed emperor. Xiao Chen's heart sank and his thoughts raced. He had a bad feeling that his actions this time had provoked some trouble. The goods that this merchant ship was carrying might not be ordinary goods. Actually, Xiao Chen should have thought of this long ago. Even though there were many blue-robed emperors in the Black Sea, they should not have run into a great perfection blue-robed emperor pirate the moment they arrived. The problem still lay with this ship. Thank you for your help, young hero. I am very grateful. I am very grateful, the middle-aged blue-robed emperor said with a smile as he flew over to Xiao Chen's side. Xiao Chen's expression did not change. He said calmly, "It is within my capabilities. If I can, I will help." There is no need to be so polite. I have a presumptuous request. Young hero should be going to Blackwater City, right? How about we travel together? The middle-aged blue-robed emperor asked in anticipation. Blackwater City was located on Blackwater Island. It was the largest city in the entire Blackwater Sea. There were no less than 100 million people in the city. Blackwater Island was astonishingly large. Although it was an island, it was no smaller than a nation in the Sky Dome realm. Since Xiao Chen had arrived at the Blackwater Sea, he naturally could not avoid going to this large city to broaden his horizons. However, Xiao Chen did not wish to have anything to do with this merchant group. Xiao Chen looked at the ship. He was not in a rush to reply. Instead, he asked, "Might I know what goods your ship is carrying?" The middle-aged blue-robed emperor's gaze paused for a moment. His expression changed unnaturally as he replied, "Nothing much. It is just some items that the Black Sea urgently lacks. Sunstone, secret silver, black gold, and the like." When Xiao Chen saw the other party's expression, he smiled and asked, "Is that so?" The middle-aged blue-robed emperor sighed and said, "Very well, I'll be honest. My merchant group received a large order. I do not know what it is exactly, but it is very large. There are a lot of them, and it took several large ships to barely fit them all. I didn't expect to run into trouble as soon as we entered the Black Sea. I would like to hire you as a guard for our caravan." Xiao Chen decisively refused. "Don't worry, nothing will happen to the goods on the ship. There should be a hidden expert on your ship whose strength is a level higher than mine." The middle-aged blue-robed emperor asked curiously, "A master? Why didn't I know about this?" The middle-aged blue-robed emperor found it strange that Xiao Chen knew better than him whether there were any experts on his ship or not. Moreover, Xiao Chen was so sure about it. "Young hero, you must be joking," the middle-aged blue-robed emperor said doubtfully. Xiao Chen muttered to himself. He was very sure of his guess. If there were no experts on the ship, it would be hard to explain. Why didn't that mysterious person from 100 miles away personally make a move and snatch away the goods that they wanted? There had to be someone on the ship that mysterious person feared. That was why he did not dare to make a move. That was the only explanation. Xiao Chen did not answer the middle-aged blue-robed emperor's question. He glanced at the merchant ship and said in a neutral tone, "Sir, since you are on the merchant ship, why don't you show yourself and let this uncle feel at ease?" "Ha ha ha! Young people really have good eyes. If I still don't show myself, I will look bad." Amid loud laughter, a white-haired old man with a healthy complexion walked out of the ship's hold. The middle-aged blue-robed emperor said in shock, "Senior Ma?" The middle-aged blue-robed emperor recognized this person. He was an old man that his employer had left behind to look after the goods. This old man was merely a superior-grade martial sage, not even comparable to the middle-aged blue-robed emperor. How could this old man be an expert? Xiao Chen sent out his mental energy from his sea of consciousness. Indeed, Senior Ma was only a superior-grade martial sage. However, the instant Xiao Chen withdrew his mental energy, Senior Ma gave off an aura as deep as the sea. It was the blue-robed emperor's consummation, cultivation. Furthermore, this was not the blue-robed emperor who cultivated an earth-ranked cultivation technique. What he cultivated was the peak heaven-ranked cultivation technique. Otherwise, his aura would not be so terrifying. The instant Senior Ma appeared, the middle-aged blue-robed emperor nearly fell from the sky. Senior Ma did not look at the middle-aged blue-robed emperor. Instead, he went straight to Xiao Chen and asked doubtfully, "Young man, which holy land are you from?" "That's not right. You use a saber. There does not seem to be any holy scions who use a saber. Could you be a disciple of the Northern Sea Saber Sovereign, the Inferno Saber Sovereign, or the Ice Saber Sovereign?" At first glance, Senior Ma eliminated Xiao Chen from the list of local cultivators of the Black Sea. This was because Senior Ma had lived in the Black Sea for hundreds of years. He knew the information of the peak experts and young, outstanding talents of the various sea domains of the Black Sea like the back of his hand. None of them matched Xiao Chen's description. In that case, Xiao Chen could only be a cultivator from the outside world. Senior Ma did not know much about the cultivators of the heavenly starry ocean, so he could only make a rough guess. Xiao Chen smiled and said, "Old sir, there is no need to guess. I come from the Kunlun continent." "Oh, the Kunlun continent. In that case, you must be a disciple of the powerful saber sovereign Wu Shaotian. My clan's ancestor once had a friendship with the powerful saber sovereign Wu Shaotian." Senior Ma suddenly understood. He immediately determined Xiao Chen's identity. He had to be the disciple of the saber sovereign Wu Shaotian. Otherwise, how could Xiao Chen cultivate a 40% comprehended saber soul at such a young age, comparable to some of the older generation bladesmen? "How about it? Since you are going to Blackwater City as well, let's go together," Senior Ma invited. Xiao Chen did not comment on Senior Ma's guess. He shook his head and said, "Sorry, I'm used to traveling alone. I'm afraid I cannot agree to Senior's request." It was clear that this ship carried extraordinary goods and had great implications. How could Xiao Chen continue to wade into such murky waters? That is somewhat unfortunate. I have an invitation here. If young master is free, you can come to our Jadeite Mountain Manor on the 15th of next month to attend a ceremony. Senior Ma did not insist. He took out an invitation from his sleeve and handed it to Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen received it and took a look. The invitation did not specify what ceremony it was, making it seem somewhat mysterious. Xiao Chen knew a little about the Jadeite Mountain Manor. It was rather famous in the Blackwater Sea, not because the current manor lord was very strong. Instead, it was because the current manor lord's grandfather was a sovereign martial emperor known as the Jadeite Sovereign. Although the Jadeite Mountain Manor was only a rank 8 faction, it was very popular in the Blackwater Sea. Even some of the peak 9 ranks of the great families had to give the Jadeite Sovereign a lot of face. However, as far as Xiao Chen knew, this Jadeite Sovereign was not ambitious and had a rather gentle personality. The Jadeite Sovereign was not very interested in developing his faction. He spent most of his time traveling the starry heavens and rarely returned to the Jadeite Mountain Manor. However, no matter how gentle the Jadeite Sovereign was, he was still a sovereign martial emperor. His fame was sufficient to intimidate everyone. As Xiao Chen watched the merchant group move further away, he entered deep thought. Then he put away the invitation and muttered to himself, "I just made a move, and I already ran into such trouble. A faction that even dares to offend the Jadeite Mountain Manor definitely has an extraordinary background." As for the middle-aged blue-robed emperor on the merchant ship, he felt so much regret that his intestines turned green. In a moment of greed, he ended up getting involved in a conflict between a large faction. Even if he could make it to Blackwater City, he might not be able to leave the Black Sea alive. Before the Heavenly Sea, Xiao Chen arrived at a small island. He prepared to rest for the night before continuing on his way. What he saw and heard on the island gave him a deeper understanding of the chaos of the Black Sea. Along the way, Xiao Chen ran into 10-odd fights. In every fight, someone would die. Human life was as cheap as grass. This was a place where one's fist did the talking. This was the undisguised law of the jungle. Most of the fights were trivial matters. Often, the slightest disagreement would lead to a fight. After living in the Black Sea for a long time and absorbing the mysterious substance in the air, one would become extremely irritable and find it hard to control one's heart. During this period, Xiao Chen also ran into some trouble. After he decisively killed a superior-grade martial sage, the problem lessened significantly. After arriving in the city, Xiao Chen found an inn to stay in. After taking a hot bath, Xiao Chen sat cross-legged on the bed and prepared to cultivate. The instant Xiao Chen closed his eyes, all sorts of mockery entered his ears. There was the sound of people fighting over the loot, men and women moaning in the same room, and miserable screams on the streets. It was very noisy, making it hard for him to calm down. After taking a deep breath, Xiao Chen treated this as a test to temper his mental state. Then he circulated his energy and continued cultivating. Xiao Chen's cultivation of the Purple Thunder Divine Incantations, 7th layer, was almost complete. He only needed to break through 5 more meridians and undergo a lightning tribulation before he could advance to the 8th layer. For the entire night, Xiao Chen carefully tried to see if he could break through one of the bottlenecks. When the sky brightened, Xiao Chen immediately paid his bill and left, continuing his journey unhurriedly. Naturally, his destination was the largest city in the Blackwater Sea, Blackwater City. After leaving the island, Xiao Chen flew 70 or 80 kilometers close to the surface of the sea, cautiously scanning the surroundings with his spiritual sense. Finally, he stopped and landed on a protruding reef in the sea. Xiao Chen focused his spiritual sense into a line and looked carefully at the target he discovered. After a while, he withdrew his spiritual sense, and his expression turned strange. Unexpectedly, he met someone familiar here. Furthermore, it was someone he had not expected. 50 kilometers away, Yu Bingyun and a man strolled on the surface of the sea. This man was called Xia Luo, a descendant of a legendary martial emperor of the Black Sea, the Thunderfire Sovereign. He possessed startling cultivation and was a rather famous, outstanding young talent. Historically, the Thunderfire Sovereign had once unified the Black Sea. Unfortunately, he only managed to do so for less than 100 years before his death. As a result, the Xia clan's strength plummeted. Now, it could only be considered one of the 9th ranks of the great families that was pretty strong, far from being a holy land. Xiao Chen's spiritual sense caught Xia Luo repeatedly trying to curry favor with Yu Bingyun, trying to find an opportunity to say such words. Unfortunately, Yu Bingyun maintained a distance, preventing him from doing so. Bingyun, what is your purpose? Ever since Xia Luo accidentally met Yu Bingyun on the sea, he had been shocked and immediately latched onto her, intending to use his charm to subdue this holy daughter from the heavenly starry ocean. Unfortunately, it did not seem to have any effect. Yu Bingyun said very politely, "Young Master Xia, I've said it before. It would be better to address me by my full name. My current destination is Blackwater City." What a coincidence! My destination is also Blackwater City. It looks like we can travel together, Xia Luo immediately said. Actually, his destination was not Blackwater City, but a remnant at the bottom of the sea. Yu Bingyun smiled helplessly. Naturally, she knew where the coincidence came from. However, it did not matter. If the other party wanted to follow, then let him. There would always be a way to shake him off. Chapter 1142. Just at this moment, a group of pirates riding mutated beasts galloped on the surface of the sea. They rode the water from afar, kicking up huge waves. Then, they appeared as fast as lightning and blocked the two's path. Pirate robberies happened every day in the Black Sea. It was not strange at all. On the reef, Xiao Chen thought this group of pirates is pretty strong. They should be able to force out some of Yu Bingyun's true strength. However, the situation did not develop as Xiao Chen expected. When the Thunderfire Sovereign's descendant Xia Luo saw this group of pirates riding mutated beasts, he rejoiced in his heart. He had been worrying about not having a chance to show off. This group of pirates really came at the right time. Hiding the joy in his heart, Xia Luo put on a furious expression and said, "Bunch of trash! Quickly scram. Otherwise, don't blame me for being ruthless." Haha, where did this by face come from? Are you trying to be a hero saving a damsel in distress? Kneel and beg for mercy, and we can spare your life. However, you have to leave this woman behind. That's right. We are not interested in men. If you want to live, then scram. The group of pirates guffawed, ignoring Xia Luo's words. They all looked at Yu Bingyun with glowing eyes. In their eyes, Yu Bingyun was like a fairy. Her figure was exquisite and exquisite. She had an extraordinary air, and her skin was like rosy clouds. Her beautiful eyes were like limpid autumn waters, giving her a boundless charm. The more the mighty pirate leader looked at Yu Bingyun, the more tempted he became. Eventually he could not help roaring, "Kill this by face and snatch this woman back." Xia Luo stepped forward and blocked Yu Bingyun. He said, "Bingyun, leave these pieces of trash to me. Don't dirty your hands." Right after Xia Luo spoke, he formed hand seals and quickly threw a palm strike. Clumps of profound flame imprints flew into the bodies of the charging pirates. The profound flame imprints seemed to be incorporeal. In an instant, they entered the bodies of these pirates. No matter how they tried to block them, it was useless. These pirates found this strange. However, after they circulated their energies and discovered that there were no major problems, they continued charging over with sinister smiles, acting all mysterious. "Watch this old man tear you apart." Dozens of pirates leaped into the air and charged towards him. If he was surrounded, he would be in big trouble. Xia Luo smiled coldly and said, "Reckless! You don't even know my Xia clan's Thunderfire mark? Die!" With a loud shout, Xia Luo pointed a finger at the sky. A bolt of lightning streaked across the sky, followed by the sound of thunder. The instant the thunder boomed, the body of the martialist who had been imprinted by the fire seal instantly turned red. Then there was a loud explosion. His body was like gunpowder, exploding until there was nothing left of his flesh and blood. It was a tragic sight. The rumbling thunder was like the fuse of dynamite. In an instant, more than half of the pirates surrounding Xia Luo were killed. The remaining people who did not die were frightened out of their wits. Xia Luo forced them to retreat repeatedly in a sorry state. The pirate leader on the exotic beast cried out inwardly. He hurriedly said, "Retreat!" The many pirates who had long lost the will to fight immediately retreated, like a receding tide, disappearing from the duo's vision. Xia Luo was in high spirits, a pleased smile on his face. He turned his head and asked, "Bingyun, are you all right?" Yu Bingyun's expression did not change at all. She said politely, "Young Master Xia, it is better to address me as Yu Bingyun. Many thanks for helping out earlier." Xia Luo's expression turned somewhat awkward. He said, "It's good that you are fine. This journey is very dangerous. Pirates come and go frequently. However, with me around, I can guarantee Miss Yu's safety." On the reef, Xiao Chen felt somewhat disappointed. If Xia Luo had not made a move, Yu Bingyun would have had to save herself. Xiao Chen would have been able to unravel the other party's mysterious veil and see how strong she was. However, this Xia Luo's martial technique also piqued Xiao Chen's curiosity. After imbuing the Thunderfire mark into the martialist's body with thunder, it was incomparably profound. After thinking for a while, Xiao Chen gained some understanding of the principles of this Thunderfire mark. After he figured it out, he realized that it was not as miraculous as it looked. The fire mark, which looked like it was made of good materials, would shatter the moment it came in contact with a cultivator's protective quintessence, turning into countless tiny imprints that pierced through the protective quintessence like air. After that, the imprints would stick to the cultivator's skin through the pores. Naturally, when one looked into the body, one would not discover anything strange about it. As for how to use thunder and lightning to gather these scattered imprints and explode them, one could only figure it out after reading the secret manual for the Thunder Fire Mark. Just by observing it, one could only get a rough idea. However, for Xiao Chen to be able to see this far, he already had a way to break this Thunder Fire Mark. This trip to the Black Sea had given Xiao Chen many pleasant surprises. This trip had not been in vain. Be it the world hunt of that pirate leader or this Xia Luo's Thunder Fire Mark, they were all unique martial techniques that broadened his horizons. "Hey, Miss Yu, can we go now?" After dealing with the pirates, Yu Bingyun was not in a rush to leave. She seemed to have made some new discoveries, so Xia Luo asked out of curiosity. Yu Bingyan seemed to have confirmed something. She smiled and said, "There's no rush. I met a friend. Let's wait for him." "Friend? Where is he? Why don't I see him?" An anxious expression flashed in Xia Luo's eyes as he looked around. However, he did not discover Xiao Qin, who was 50 kilometers away. He did not know who Yu Bingyun was referring to. Yu Bingyun smiled faintly. Then she turned her head and spoke in sign language. "Young Master Xiao, how much longer are you going to keep watching?" This stunned Xiao Qin, who had been observing from the reef. Even from 50 kilometers away, Yu Bingyun had discovered his presence. "What sharp senses! You are much stronger than this Xia Luo," Xiao Chun muttered to himself. He guessed that Yu Bingyun must have sensed him when he used his spiritual sense to scan the other party. Since he had already been discovered, there was no need to continue hiding. Xiao Qin pushed off the water and executed Thunder Dragon steps. 3 lightning dragons swam in the water. 4 lightning dragons danced at the sides, and 3 circled above Xiao Chen's head. The Thunder Dragon steps, modified from the Blue Dragon cloud soaring art, was mighty and more suitable for Xiao Chen. He could use it as he pleased. In combat, it was even more compatible with his martial techniques. After about 7 minutes, Xiao Chen easily arrived 50 kilometers away. He pushed off the water, and 10 lightning dragons entered his body. The mighty aura instantly vanished, demonstrating Xiao Chen's strong control over the Thunder Dragon steps. He could use it as he pleased, advancing and retreating with a thought. Xiao Chen slowly landed beside Yu Bingyun. When he landed, he did not cause any splash. He said calmly, "This is a little unexpected. Unexpectedly, I ran into miss you here." "Haha. Why is it that only you are allowed to come to the Black Sea for experiential training, but not me?" "I also have the cultivation of the blue-robed emperor," Yu Bingyun said softly with a smile. "Young Master Xia, let me introduce you. This is my friend, Mo Yun, from the Kunlun continent." Mo Yin? Xiao Qin wondered why Yu Bingyun helped him hide his identity. However, this was fine. Although not many people knew about the Blue Dragon King in the Black Sea, he could use an alias to save himself some trouble. Xiao Qin did not deny it, taking it as acquiescence. Xia Luo smiled straightforwardly. After greeting Xiao Qin, he asked, "I wonder, where is Brother Mo's destination?" "Black Water City," Xiao Chun answered honestly. Xia Luo's expression changed, and a murderous intent flashed in his eyes. Then he smiled strangely and said, "Is that so? Brother Mo, think carefully and see if you remembered wrong." This was already a clear threat, telling Xiao Qin to change his itinerary and not disturb his time with Yu Bingyun. "Crazy!" Xiao Qin cursed in his heart. Then he looked at the other party indifferently and said, "I know better than you whether I remembered wrong or not. There is no need for Brother Xia to worry." When Xia Luo heard this, his expression turned exceptionally sullen. Unexpectedly, this fellow did not understand his clear hint. Yu Bingyun smiled and said, "In that case, it looks like I can travel with young Master Mo on this trip to Blackwater City." As Yu Bingyun spoke, she completely ignored Xia Luo, upsetting the other party. Blackwater City Island was the core island of the Blackwater Sea. It was astonishingly vast, so vast that it could no longer be simply called an island. Even the blue-robed emperor would have to spend a lot of time to explore every place. Of course, this was just to explore every place. If one wanted to study it seriously, even 100 years would not be enough. The terrain of the island was extremely complicated. There were mountains, plains, deserts, snowy lands, and all sorts of other landforms. The ruins of the ancient era could be found everywhere, attracting many experts to adventure there. Historically, the many islands of the Black Sea had once been a complete continent. It had its own glorious period with many heroes, overlords, powerful sovereigns, and legendary martial emperors. Stars twinkled, looking resplendent and glorious. However, as time passed after the continent shattered, very few people remembered that period of history. Xiao Chen's group of 3 headed for Blackwater City did not move very fast. The main reason was that Xiao Chen and Yu Bingyun wanted to gain experiential training, to see what was different about the Black Sea cultivators. After walking for half a month, the group saw the outline of Blackwater Island. In this half a month, Xiao Chen had had enough of the legendary Thunder Fire Sovereign's descendant, Xia Luo. Xia Luo felt that he would definitely be able to recreate the Thunder Fire Sovereign's glorious feat one day, so he looked down on Xiao Chen from the bottom of his heart. Furthermore, Xiao Chen did not know how to adapt to circumstances, ruining his chance to be alone with Yu Bingyun. This made Xia Luo feel even more upset and depressed. If not for Yu Bingyun being present, Xia Luo would have attacked Xiao Chen long ago to teach him a lesson. There is a small town in front. We can rest there for the night and rush to Blackwater City at daybreak. My Xia clan is rather famous in Blackwater City. When we get to the city, I can introduce Miss Yu to the famous blue-robed emperor experts of Blackwater City. As Xia Luo said this, he glanced at Xiao Chen casually, putting on an aloof air. Xiao Chen felt speechless. Femme fatale. This Xia Luo looked like someone with some strength and was not stupid. However, after getting infatuated with Yu Bingyun, it was like water got into his head. Xia Luo's actions were all childish. For example, he started to flaunt his clan. This made Xiao Chen feel that it was ridiculous. Chapter 1143. Since we have arrived at Blackwater Island, let's part ways for now. I still have matters to attend to, so I won't disturb the 2 of you any longer. Not willing to stay any longer, Xiao Chen prepared to take his leave. Who knew? Xia Luo, who had been displeased with Xiao Chen along the way, interjected before Yu Bingyun could say anything. Young Master Mo, since we are already at Blackwater Island, why the rush to leave? Don't refuse to give me face. No matter what, I have to do my duty as a host. It was hard for me to bear with you for such a long time. Now that I've finally reached my territory, it won't be easy for me to leave. Xia Luo steeled his heart. No matter what method he had to use, he had to make Xiao Chen stay, to let him know the consequences of interrupting him. Xiao Chen looked at Xia Luo's expression. When the other party raised his eyebrows, he knew what Xia Luo was planning. Originally, he didn't want to cause any more trouble, but now he was really angry. If you want to play, I'll play with you. Let's see who cries more in the end. He immediately smiled and said, Is that so? As a super city of the Black Sea, I have long been curious about Blackwater City. Since young Master Xia is willing to entertain me, I will not leave. Xia Luo sneered in his heart. You are smiling now, but when the time comes, you won't even be able to cry even if you want to. However, Xia Luo put on a warm expression. Yu Bingyun, who was at the side, was very smart. Naturally, she knew what Xia Luo was thinking. However, she did not feel worried for Xiao Chen. Given Xia Luo's level, he was too naive to think that he could play such tricks on Xiao Chen. In the heavenly starry ocean, the holy scions of the immortal Holy Lands were all traumatized by Xiao Chen. A declining clan with a glorious ancestor was far from sufficient. In her heart, she also looked forward to the matter of the heavenly origin pill that Xiao Chen left behind. However, due to Xia Luo sticking to her, it was not convenient for her to ask about it. I should have a chance to ask Xiao Chen about it when I check into the inn tonight. Night came earlier in the Black Sea than in other places. In the middle of the night, through the dark clouds, apart from a hazy bright moon, no stars could be seen. Dong, dong, dong. Knocking came from the door to Xiao Chen's room. Xiao Chen, who was cultivating cross-legged, opened his eyes and sent out his spiritual sense. It was Yu Bingyun. Xiao Chen opened the door with a wave of his hand and said indifferently, I thought you had forgotten about the heavenly origin pill. It looks like you still remember. Yu Bingyun walked over and asked softly, How is it? Did you succeed? Whoosh! An exquisite jade bottle flew towards Yu Bingyun. Yu Bingyun's slender, snow-white hands gracefully caught the jade bottle. Yu Bingyun opened the jade bottle and gently sniffed it. Her usually calm face could not help revealing a trace of joy. She closed the bottle cap and said, "Many thanks, Xiao Qin. This time, I owe you a huge favor. There's no need to be so polite. It's not difficult for me to refine this heavenly origin pill. After all, you've prepared 100 sets of materials. No matter what, you'll succeed at least one set." Xiao Chen appeared rather calm at Yu Bingyun's excitement. He would not be able to gain too much advantage from this woman. If he could draw a line between them, it would be best to do so. Yu Bingyun put away the jade bottle and did not dwell on this topic. She glanced at Xiao Chen and asked, "I wonder, why did young Master Xiao appear in the Black Sea? Do you have a plan?" Naturally, Xiao Chen would not tell her his plan. He smiled and said, "My appearance in the Black Sea is easy to explain. What about you? As the Lunar Palace's holy daughter, why did you come out alone? Are you not afraid of an accident?" Yu Bingyun smiled and said, "As the Lunar Palace's holy daughter, barring any accidents, I will be the next Lunar Palace master. Naturally, the person in charge of the Lunar Palace cannot be a flower vase in a greenhouse. The Black Sea is the best cultivation ground for the blue-robed emperor. It is not strange for me to be here." Xiao Qin kept feeling that the other party definitely had a purpose for appearing in the Black Sea. Since Yu Bingyun was not willing to say, naturally he would not keep asking. The two chatted casually for a while. Then, Yu Bingyun stood up and took her leave. Before she left, she suddenly turned her head back and said, "You had best not leave Blackwater City before the 15th of next month. Otherwise, you might miss out on something that you will regret for life." Before the 15th, Xiao Chen thought of the invitation in his hand. His heart skipped a beat, and he quickly chased after Yu Bingyun. "Are you talking about the Jadeite Mountain Manners ceremony?" This time, it was Yu Bingyun's turn to find it strange. "How did you know about this?" "Right now, not many people know about this." Xiao Qin took out his invitation. Yu Bingyun received it and took a look. Then she smiled and said, "You are really confident. The manor lord of this Jadeite Mountain Manor even prepared an invitation. Do you really think that you will succeed? Are you not afraid of making a fool of yourself? What exactly is it? Can't you tell me a little in advance?" Yu Bingyun shook her head and said, "I really can't tell you this. Otherwise, if something unexpected happens, it will not be good for either of us. You just have to remember not to leave Blackwater City before the 15th of next month. If you are lucky enough, your chances of advancing to Martial Emperor in 5 years will be much higher." When Xiao Chen heard this, he suddenly felt the invitation in his hand become exceptionally heavy. The mysterious Yu Bingyun had piqued Xiao Chen's curiosity to the extreme. However, the other party was not willing to reveal anything. It is not late anymore. You should stop cultivating and have a good sleep. Have a good dream." Yu Bingyun smiled sweetly. Unconsciously, she revealed a perfect air that could topple all living things, one that could topple cities. Xiao Chen was not in the mood to appreciate it. He smiled bitterly and said, "Do you think that I can sleep peacefully with my current curiosity?" Yu Bingyun bit her lip and pondered. After hesitating for a while, she looked at Xiao Chen and said, "Very well. I can only tell you that the Jadeite Mountain Manners ceremony this time has something to do with a divine weapon. Furthermore, this divine weapon has a strong connection to the heart of an emperor." After sending off Yu Bingyun with his eyes, Xiao Chen still could not figure out the connection. He knew too little. "Ao Jiao, what do you think it is?" "If I guessed right, the ceremony should be for the Jadeite Mountain Manor to have a divine weapon enter the divine weapon ranking, becoming one of the 10 strongest divine weapons in the world. There have been many such ceremonies in history." Xiao Chen suddenly understood. Aside from this, there was indeed no other ceremony that could be connected to a divine weapon. Divine weapons could rival emperor-grade secret treasures. There were many of them, but only 10 of them could enter the divine weapon ranking, known as transcendent divine weapons. Transcendent divine weapons could intimidate sovereign martial emperors, comparable to primordial emperor-grade secret treasures. As far as Shao Qin knew, the saber sovereign Wu Xiaotian and the sword sovereign Lu Xiaoyan dared to fight with primes because they had the coiling monarch time saber and the scarlet firmament void sword. This showed how strong the transcendent divine weapons on the divine weapon ranking were. After figuring this out, the other clues immediately made sense. The merchant group that Shao Qin saw when he entered the Black Sea should be carrying the supplementary divine materials for breaking into a transcendent divine weapon. Shao Qin also understood why Yu Bingyan appeared. As far as he knew, the startling phoenix zither, a transcendent divine weapon ranked 10th on the divine weapon ranking, was in the hands of the Lunar Palace. If another divine weapon succeeded in breaking into a transcendent divine weapon, the heavenly phoenix zither, ranked 10th, would definitely fall. The reason was none other than the fact that only 10 divine weapons were allowed on the divine weapon ranking. As long as a new divine weapon made it into the divine weapon ranking, the one ranked last would definitely fall, becoming an ordinary divine weapon. Yu Bingyan's purpose in coming here was to stop the Jadeite Mountain Manor's Manor Lord from breaking into a transcendent divine weapon, preventing the startling phoenix zither from falling off the divine weapon ranking. When Shao Chun thought about it carefully, the Lunar Palace probably sent people to look for the pirates that came to rob the merchant ship. With this connection made sense, all the clues connected in Shao Chen's mind. He now understood the entire sequence of events. All that was left was the connection between the divine weapon and the heart of an emperor. This was simple. He just needed to find out the origins of the divine weapon that the Jadeite Mountain Manor possessed. "Ayo, Jiao, thank you," Shao Qin said with a smile, revealing joy on his face. Ayo Jiao, who was in the Immortal Spirit Ring, smiled faintly and said, "You cannot see clearly because you are closely involved. Given your intelligence, if you were a bystander, you would definitely be able to see more clearly than me." Bang! Just at this moment, just as Shao Chun was about to answer, the door to the room suddenly shattered. A strong, knife-like wind blew in. Chapter 1144. Many of the decorations in the room were shredded to pieces. Clanging sounds rang out incessantly. The originally quiet room suddenly turned into a mess. Xia Luo stood outside the door with a furious expression. He retracted his hand and said coldly, "Brat, I gave you face, but you do not want it. Why did Yu Bingyan come to your room? Tell me everything in detail." A murderous intent flashed in Shao Chen's heart. He suppressed the rage in his heart and stood up. Then he asked indifferently, "Is there a need to tell you?" "Haha, good, very good." Xia Luo's killing qi surged all over his body. He smiled coldly as he stared at Shao Chen. "The ignorant are truly ignorant. Originally, I was planning to let you live and deal with you when we reach Blackwater City. It looks like there is no need to do so now. Die." Xia Luo roared ferociously, and a fierce electric fire burned on his body. A berserk electric light surged out of his body. In that instant, the electric light blasted the entire inn apart. The warriors staying in the inn were like frightened birds and beasts. They all rushed out, not daring to stay in the same place for a moment. They were afraid that they would get involved in the battle between the experts. Amid the electric light, Xia Luo was like a thunder god. His aura was unparalleled. When he punched, thousands of electric bolts burning with flames appeared. When Xia Luo punched at Shao Qin, his rage sword, he used his full power in this punch, not holding anything back at all. Berserk thunder rumbled, not stopping for even a moment. Xia Luo's punch displayed a strong and horrifying explosive force. It was clear that he wanted to kill Shao Chun with one punch. That's right. The accumulations of the legendary Thunder Fire Sovereign's bloodline cannot be underestimated. Even though it had declined significantly, Xia Luo's strength was still remarkable and qualified to be arrogant. Of course, Xia Luo was only slightly knowledgeable. In Xiao Chen's eyes, this was far from sufficient. Xiao Chen, who was seated, suddenly stood up. His heavenly seal moved with a thought. 10,000 strands of law energy drove the surging power of the world with a thought. The rock hates the sky for being too low when it spreads its wings. When Xiao Chun punched as well, a huge Kuin Pong that covered half the sky soared up behind him. The shattered and immediately turned into powder and vanished. Whoosh! 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 Xiao Qin did not move at all. However, when he moved at full power, his aura instantly suppressed Xia Luo. Without giving Xia Luo any time to be shocked, the instant the two fists collided, Xia Luo vomited blood and flew back. Yu Bingyin hovered high in the sky. A consummation Emperor Wu with a horrifying cultivation stood behind her. "Is that your friend?" the old man asked Yu Bingyin as he pointed to Xia Luo. Yu Bingyin shook her head. "Naturally not." "That's good. This person's character is extremely terrible. His reputation in the Black Sea is not very good either." The old man nodded. Then he pointed to Xiao Qin and asked, "How is that person related to young Miss?" "He was the one who killed the leader of our first batch of people, the Blood Wolf pirate group." Yu Bingyun sighed softly. After asking about the details, she understood. She said, "He is my friend. This should just be a misunderstanding. He does not have any connection to the Jadeite Mountain Manor. Is the plan ready?" "It is ready." The old man whispered, "I can guarantee that the Jadeite Mountain Manor will lose more than they gain on the 15th of next month." As the two spoke, the battle below slowly came to an end. After Xiao Chen sent Xia Luo flying with a punch, he fell into a rhythm of getting beaten up. Many of the cultivators staying in the town recognized Xia Luo. When they saw him getting beaten up so miserably, their faces filled with surprise. "Who is this white-clad youth? How come he dares to beat up the Xia clan's people? He is really strong. Among the younger generation of Blackwater City, this Xia Luo is considered quite a character. Unexpectedly, he got beaten up so miserably at his own home." Xia Luo, who had been beaten up to the point of losing his temper, howled in agony. He no longer had any of his earlier tyranny. He glared hatefully at Xiao Qin before rushing back to Blackwater City. Xiao Qin stood upright with his hands behind his back. He did not give chase, letting Xia Luo flee in a sorry state. This is going to be somewhat problematic. The Xia clan is very powerful in Blackwater City. "You were too rash," Yu Bingyin said slowly as she landed. Xiao Qin did not care. He said, "There are more than 100 million people in the city, comparable to a large nation. No matter how powerful the Xia clan is, they will not find me that easily. There will be a blue-robed emperor-level auction in Blackwater City soon. Are you interested in going?" Clearly, Yu Bingyin did not care about Xia Luo's matter. She mentioned something else and extended an invitation to Xiao Qin. Sure. Right now, Xiao Chun had more than 100 million black astral coins. He felt some anticipation for this blue-robed emperor-level auction. Perhaps he might be able to find some equipment that he wanted. When the sky brightened, Xiao Chen and Yu Bingyun arrived before Blackwater City at the same time. The Black City walls were like a dragon forged of steel, coiled on the ground. There was no sunlight shining on the dark space. However, there was a restrained glow that flickered on the city walls, looking extremely mysterious. This ring of city walls probably had other mysteries, containing many divine materials. Even if a martial emperor attacked, he might not be able to destroy the city in an instant. As Yu Bingyin looked at the city walls, she also felt moved. She said, "The rank of this city is not low. It can be considered a rank 8 city. It can block an ordinary Emperor Wu. Cities are divided into ranks." Xiao Qin asked out of curiosity. Yu Bingyun smiled gently and said, "That is natural. There are numbers from 1 to 9. The higher the rank, the better. After rank 9 is the strongest holy city. Xiao Chen entered deep thought. Then he thought about the newly built Heaven Dragon City. Based on what Mo Chen said, it was not weaker than Bright Moon City. So he asked, "What rank is Bright Moon City?" Pride flashed on Yu Bingyun's face. She said, "Of course, Bright Moon City is a holy city that surpasses rank 9. Furthermore, it has been passed down for tens of thousands of years. After accumulating continuously, it is worthy of the title of Immortal Holy City. It is one of the strongest holy cities in the entire oceanic world." In that case, it looked like the rank of Heaven Dragon City was not bad either. It could be considered a holy city as well. However, it was still a distance away from the Immortal Holy City. In the future, Xiao Chen would see if he could think of other ways to catch up to the accumulations of these immortal holy cities. Speaking of which, how many immortal holy cities are there in the oceanic world that are worthy of the title of the strongest holy city? After paying the entrance tax, the two entered the city and started chatting. Yu Bingyun knew a lot about such information. She immediately answered, 7. There is an immortal holy city in each vast sea region. In the heavenly starry ocean is Bright Moon City. In the Penglai Sea is Penglai City. In the Black Sea is the Core Sea Domain, the Dark Sea's Dark City. This was the first time Xiao Chen heard about this, so he felt somewhat curious. He continued asking, "What about the other 4? Could it be that aside from these 3 sea domains, there are other sea domains?" There definitely are. However, it is useless to tell you now. The oceanic world is practically endless. Even the overlord Neptune does not dare to say that it understands every sea domain. As the two chatted, they entered an inn. After ordering some food and eating, they headed for the rooms that they had reserved for each other. Xiao Chen stopped the manservant who came to collect the clothes and gave him 100 black astral coins. He wanted the manservant to figure out the details of the Jadeite Mountain Manor's divine weapon within 4 hours. This was all public information. The Jadeite Mountain Manor was very famous in Blackwater City. As long as the locals spent some time, they would be able to obtain it easily. When the manservant saw the 100 black astral coins, he felt that it was no different from taking it for free. He quickly agreed with a wide smile on his face. Sitting cross-legged on his thighs, Xiao Chen continued to temper himself, merging the 5 different attributes into his saber soul. At the same time, in a courtyard belonging to the Xia clan in Blackwater City, Xia Luo spoke to an old man with a sullen expression. This old man was called Wang Zhen. 3 years ago, he successfully broke through to great perfection blue-robed emperor, becoming a consummation blue-robed emperor who formed a soul for his heavenly seal. From then on, Wang Zhen became the person in charge of the Xia clan in Blackwater City, managing all the Xia clan's factions in Blackwater City. All Wang Zhen needed to do was accumulate enough and clear the great tribulation of wind and fire. Then he could make his breakthrough to Emperor Wu. However, if he failed the great tribulation of wind and fire, he would most likely die. Even if he accumulated enough, he might not have the courage or confidence to undergo the great tribulation of wind and fire. How bold! How dare he bully our Xia clan so openly? Second young master, don't worry. Leave this matter to this old man. As long as I find this person, I will cripple him on the spot. A murderous intent flashed in Wang Zhen's eyes. With his consummation blue-robed emperor cultivation, killing a great perfection blue-robed emperor would be a piece of cake. After Xiao Chen merged his soul into the heavenly seal, not only would he be able to drive the power of the world much purer than the great perfection blue-robed emperor, but he would also be able to do it more easily. This was a qualitative difference from the great perfection blue-robed emperor. The most important thing was that after Xiao Chen merged his soul into the heavenly seal had already become the vague form of the heart of an emperor. At this moment, unless a cultivator's head was chopped off or their heart was shattered, it would be very difficult for them to deal any fatal damage to the consummation blue-robed emperor. Now, the blue-robed emperor's sage body strengthened once more, becoming infinitely close to the golden emperor body. Xia Luo's expression turned sinister as he said sullenly, "There is no rush for now. 3 days from now, Blackwater City will hold a blue-robed emperor-level auction. At that time I will be able to obtain a few treasures, and my strength will improve by leaps and bounds." Wang Zhen was very meticulous and immediately understood Xia Luo's meaning. The second young master wanted to personally defeat that white-clad man to wash away his shame. "No problem. I will listen to second young master." Back at the inn, Shao Qin exited his cultivation state. Of the 5 high-grade attributes, Shao Qin could already perfectly merge death and massacre into his saber soul. Now, he could form 100% compatible saber soul and a death saber soul. Their might was not much weaker than the lightning saber soul. If Shao Qin could cultivate these 2 states into wills, they would be no weaker than the lightning saber soul. At that time, his combat prowess would not be much weaker than a consummation blue-robed emperor's. Dong! 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 There was knocking on the door, and a manservant popped his head out with a smile. Then he handed a complete set of information to Shao Qin. The manservant's efficiency was faster than he expected. Shao Qin rewarded him with some black astral coins before sending the manservant away. Shao Qin wanted to see what kind of divine weapon this jadeite mountain manor had. As Shao Qin looked carefully and flipped through the information page by page, the expression on Shao Qin's face turned increasingly grave. He could not suppress the excitement on his face. Chapter 1145. The jadeite mountain manor's divine weapon was called the Heavenly Cloud Jadeite Sword. It was left behind by the jadeite sovereign, who no longer managed the jadeite mountain manor. The Heavenly Cloud Jadeite sword was not forged by the jadeite sovereign. Its original name was not that either. Instead, it was called the Heavenly Blood Sword. This was the sword of another legendary martial emperor of the Black Sea, the Blood Sword Sovereign. The glory that the Blood Sword Sovereign once created was even more dazzling than that of Xia Luo's ancestor, the Thunder Fire Sovereign. Aside from the Blood Sword Sovereign's human bloodline, he also had the bloodline of the Deep Abyss Demonic World's blood race, a mixed blood of humans and demons. However, the Blood Sword Sovereign's history was too ancient. Before the Black Sea continent shattered, he had already died. The legends he left behind only existed in ancient books. There was only one story that spread far and wide: the Blood Sword Sovereign forming the heart of an emperor before advancing to martial emperor. He became the first person to do so, shaking the entire Kunlun realm. In the history of the martial epoch, no one had formed a complete heart of an emperor before advancing to martial emperor. The heavenly seal infused into the soul was only the vague form of the heart of an emperor, far from the true heart of an emperor. Only those who cleared the great tribulation of wind and fire, reforged their golden body, and successfully pushed open the emperor's door could possess the heart of an emperor. However, this Blood Sword Sovereign broke this rule, becoming the only person in history to possess the heart of an emperor before advancing to martial emperor. Shao Qin's hand nearly trembled as he held the information. If he could grasp this secret technique and condense the heart of an emperor, he would be able to resolve the problem of infusing the soul into the heavenly seal. The problem of infusing the soul into the heavenly seal would naturally be solved when he reached great perfection, blue-robed emperor, and consummation, blue-robed emperor. The principle was very simple. When one merged the soul into the heavenly seal, it only formed the vague form of the heart of an emperor. If one condensed the complete heart of an emperor in advance, why would one care about a vague form? This was the opportunity that Yu Bingyan mentioned. After putting down the information, Shao Qin calmed down. If this secret technique was so easy to find, there would have been a second person who condensed the heart of an emperor in advance after tens of thousands of years. Could the crux of the secret technique for condensing the heart of an emperor be related to the jadeite mountain manor's heavenly cloud jadeite sword? With limited information, this was all that Shaoqin could think of. The secret technique to condense the heart of an emperor in advance was definitely related to the heavenly cloud jadeite sword. However, what kind of connection did it have with the heavenly cloud jadeite sword becoming a transcendent, divine weapon? As for Yu Bingyun's position in this matter, no one knew. Putting down the documents, Shao Chen rubbed his head. There was no point in thinking too much. He just had to wait for the 15th of the next month. At that time, all the answers would be revealed. For now, he would concentrate on his cultivation. 3 days later, he would go to the blue-robed emperor level auction house to take a look and see if he could gain anything. Otherwise, he would have nowhere to spend his hundreds of millions of black astral coins. That would be rather depressing. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. Yu Bingyun knocked on the door punctually, inviting Shao Chen to come with her. As the name suggested, only the blue-robed emperor was allowed to participate in the blue-robed emperor level auction. Such an auction could not be held in an ordinary city. There was no other reason other than the fact that they could not gather many blue-robed emperors. With only 4 or 5 people, there was no competition at all. How could they possibly open an auction? However, such an auction could definitely be held in Blackwater City. Furthermore, the scene would be extremely lively. The Black Sea was the best experiential training ground for the blue-robed emperor. Its reputation was not undeserved. There were many blue-robed emperor experts in Blackwater City. While one could not see them just by looking up, with a few more steps, one would definitely run into 1 or 2 blue-robed emperors. The auction house was known as the Heavenly Cauldron Pavilion. The major faction behind it was the Heavenly Cauldron Gate, which was no weaker than a holy land. There were also several sovereign martial emperors, all of whom had connections to the Heavenly Cauldron Pavilion. The Heavenly Cauldron Pavilion, which had a frighteningly strong backer, had already organized the blue-robed emperor level auction for several hundred years. No one had ever dared to cause trouble. Slowly, this blue-robed emperor level auction became a major event in Blackwater City. It attracted nearly 80% of the blue-robed emperors in the entire Blackwater Sea. There were even blue-robed emperors in the neighboring Blackwind Sea and Blackfire Sea, who came because of its fame, hoping to find a treasure. When Shao Qin and Yu Bingyin rushed to the street where the Heavenly Cauldron Pavilion was located, they discovered that many cultivators had already gathered in front of the pavilion. There were also several people in the nearby inns and pavilions. They held wine cups as if they were watching the excitement. Occasionally, they would whisper to each other or exclaim in surprise, "What is going on?" Shao Qin asked out of curiosity. This was Yu Bingyun's first time here as well, so she was not clear on what was going on. She only understood after asking a passerby. It turned out that the Heavenly Cauldron Pavilion's blue-robed emperor-level auction tickets were not bought with black astral coins. Instead, cultivators had to prove their strength. The stronger one was, the better the ticket they could obtain. Those with average strength could only obtain ordinary tickets and sit in the hall, unable to enjoy a private room. This was rather interesting. In the other auctions, which one did not treat the blue-robed emperor as an honored guest. Here, one had to rely on one's strength to obtain a ticket. If one was not strong enough, one could only obtain the most ordinary ticket. Under the gaze of so many eyes, it was embarrassing enough to only get a ticket to the main hall. Let's go over and take a look. The two exuded the aura of the blue-robed emperor as they parted the crowd and headed in. When they arrived, they finally saw what was going on. There was 100-meter-tall stone stele at the foot of the thousands of steps paved with metal. This was the testing stele for the blue-robed emperor's strength. Rows of gems were embedded in the stele at regular intervals. There were a total of 7 rows, and each row had 10 gems. Not far away, there was an exquisite and profound metal dummy connected to the stele through a formation. Occasionally, the blue-robed emperor would step forward and strike the metal dummy. Then, the gems embedded in the steel would glow continuously. When the two stepped forward, a small perfection blue-robed emperor happened to be there. He mustered his strength and drove the power of the world with all his might. Then he punched the metal dummy. Bang! There was a deafening sound. A strong wind blew, and the clouds churned. The aura and pressure looked very strong. The 10 white gems in the first row on the testing steel all lit up in an instant. The entire steel glowed with a bright white light. After lighting up the 10 gems in the first row, one would obtain the right to enter the auction. However, whether one could obtain the honored guest status and enjoy a private room would depend on the results. The speed at which the 10 blue gems in the second row lit up was clearly much slower. By the time the 300th row of green gems lit up, the speed at which they lit up became even slower. The cultivator standing in front of the metal dummy had a nervous and expectant expression. However, of the 10 gems in the third row, only 5 lit up in the end. The third row is not fully lit up. Sorry, we can only give you the most ordinary tickets. The person in charge of the Heavenly Cauldron Pavilion, who was standing at the side, took out a ticket and handed it to the middle-aged man. The middle-aged man received the ticket with a depressed expression. I am already a peak small perfection blue-robed emperor, yet I cannot even obtain the honored guest status. What's wrong? You are not convinced? The person in charge of the Heavenly Cauldron Pavilion said expressionlessly. I was just saying, the middle-aged man said with an embarrassed smile. After he spoke, he headed straight for the stairs and entered the Heavenly Cauldron Pavilion. How could he not be convinced? This was not a place for a blue-robed emperor to behave atrociously. Even if it were a minor heavenly emperor, he would have to think twice before coming. After that, Xiao Chen looked at a few more people and understood the trick. One had to light up at least 3 rows before they could obtain an honored guest ticket. After that, for every row lit up, they could obtain a private room on a higher level, enjoying better service and benefits. Bang! There was another loud sound, and the stone steel started to change colors rapidly. White, blue, green, red. It only stopped after changing 6 colors. The power of one punch lit up 6 rows of gems. This immediately caused an uproar, attracting the attention of several people. It is another consummation blue-robed emperor character. This is Jin Liangqi. 10 years ago, he was a consummation blue-robed emperor expert. However, he has not shown himself in the past few years. Apparently, he is preparing to undergo his great tribulation of wind and fire. Haha, he probably does not have the guts to undergo his great tribulation of wind and fire. Otherwise, he would not have shown himself. Before the envious gazes of the crowd, Jin Liangqi's slightly gloomy face did not change at all. He received the ticket for the honored guest room on the 6th floor and walked over expressionlessly. Xiao Chen thought to himself, it turns out that one needs the strength of a consummation blue-robed emperor to light up the gems on the 6th row. After observing for a long time, Xiao Chen discovered that this testing stone steel was extremely accurate in measuring one's strength. All this while, Xiao Chen did not have a clear idea of the level of his strength. The testing stone steel before him was a good opportunity to see the strongest strength that he could burst out with and how big the gap was between it and those consummation, blue-robed emperor existences. Just as Xiao Chen was about to step forward and make a move, a familiar figure walked over. It was the legendary Thunder Fire Sovereign's descendant, Xia Luo. Accompanying Xia Luo was an old man with an extremely strong aura. This was a consummation, blue-robed emperor expert. However, when Xiao Chen observed this old man, he found that this old man's aura was weaker than Jin Liangqi's. The difference was obvious. Indeed, as Xia Luo expected, when Jin Liangqi punched the metal puppet, the light changed. Only 3 purple gems on the 6th row lit up. Compared to the 9 purple gems on the 6th row that Jin Liangqi lit up, this was far from enough. After successfully obtaining a VIP room on the 6th floor, Xiao Luo followed behind the old man with a cocky expression. There were many hidden talents in Blackwater City. The blue-robed emperor level auction had drawn out all these consummation blue-robed emperors, opening one's horizons. Xiao Chen walked out of the crowd in anticipation, preparing to test which row of gems he could light up. Whoosh! Just as Xiao Chen was about to reach the metal puppet, someone with a strong aura flew over in the air, not even bothering to look at Xiao Chen. This person continued diving down, kicking up a strong wind that was as sharp as a saber. He said coldly, scram to the side, "Let this young master test first." The strong wind was like a saber, and the aura was like a mountain. This figure arrived with a surging aura. His fearless sharpness forced back the surrounding cultivators watching the excitement. Xiao Chen frowned. Without much time to think, he turned around and sent a palm strike. The other party was too fast. If Xiao Chen hesitated for even a moment, he would get injured. Chapter 1146. There was no such thing as reason in the Black Sea. The weak would never gain sympathy. Bang! The newcomer was somewhat surprised. Under the pressure of his strong aura, the other party, a newly advanced great perfection blue-robed emperor, did not choose to retreat. The newcomer's lips curled up in a cruel smile as he said coldly, "You are like a mantis trying to stop a chariot. Scram!" The newcomer also sent out a palm strike. Flames soared and formed many flaming mountains behind him. A total of 18 flaming mountains appeared in an instant. The blazing air burned everyone's skin, forcing the cultivators watching to move back another kilometer. A few cultivators with low cultivations even had their eyebrows and hair set ablaze. This showed how horrifying the might of this palm strike was. How startling would the power of 18 flaming mountains be when they erupted together? When the cultivators saw this newcomer's appearance, clearly they all exclaimed. Clearly, they recognized this person and were extremely surprised at his appearance. On the other hand, Xiao Chen's palm strike looked ordinary, without any wind or waves, without any shocking, mysterious phenomenon. Upon seeing this scene, several cultivators shook their heads. This white-clad youth was probably going to suffer. Only Yu Bingyan knew that Xiao Chen had not used his full power yet. If he really did, his aura would suppress the newcomer in an instant. Boom! The moment the two palms collided, an earth-shattering sound rang out, and the surrounding void distorted. The 18 flaming mountains erupted at the same time, rumbling endlessly. Overwhelming heat waves spread out in all directions. The flames twisted into all sorts of shapes in the twisted space, preventing the cultivators in the surroundings from seeing the situation clearly. However, it did not matter to them whether they could see or not. Not many people believed that this white-clad youth could block under such circumstances. With such a horrifying palm strike, even if he did not die, he would be severely injured. This was the consequence of blind arrogance. Sometimes, one had to acknowledge one's grandson. Youths should not be too sharp. After suffering some grievances, they would not be able to suppress their temper. The scene before them was the best example. Buzz! 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 Suddenly, the crisp hum of a saber rang out in the space, distorted by the flames. It was like a string of pleasant zither music resounding in the surroundings. The torrential heat wave was slowly swept clean by this zither-like saber hum. The distorted space regained its tranquility, and the flames disappeared, allowing everyone to see the situation on the other side clearly. When the two palms clashed, they were actually evenly matched. Xiao Qin, who did not use any martial techniques, did not take even half a step back from the force of his opponent's palm strike. The two of them still maintained the posture of their palms colliding. Under the powerful pressure, Xiao Chen's body remained as straight as a mountain. His white robe was untainted by a speck of dust. His hair danced in the wind like the strings of a zither, playing a murderous intent. Everyone was shocked. No one spoke. They were all dumbfounded. Even the person in charge of the Heavenly Cauldron Pavilion could not help but be moved. It was not because of the incredible combat prowess that Shao Qin displayed. Instead, it was because such a martial technique was unheard of and unseen before. Unexpectedly, a person turned his clothes, his hair, every part of himself into a saber. Where did this white-robed person come from? He is the descendant of the Black Sea's great bandit Zhang Heng. Unexpectedly, he could not knock him back with one palm strike. Furthermore, I have never seen anyone use this martial technique before. How did he do it? There are sabers everywhere. This is simply miraculous. I have never heard of it before. Since ancient times, no one has ever done it like this. This is a completely different situation. It is truly miraculous. There are thousands of saber daos, but I have never seen such a saber dao before. Strange voices rang out. Everyone found this incredible, subverting the logic they knew. Yu Bingyin did not dare to be surprised. However, when she heard the youth's identity, she looked over in surprise. This arrogant youth was actually Zhang Feng, the descendant of Zhang Heng, one of the 13 great bandits of the Black Sea. Zhang Heng ranked third among the 13 great bandits, an extremely strong sovereign martial emperor. He was known as the Flame Sovereign. He moved unhindered throughout the Black Sea's 5 great seas, a major character without a doubt. His strength was overwhelming and unfathomable. Shock flashed on Zhang Feng's face. He had not expected to run into such a ruthless character in this black water city. Even in Dark City, where outstanding talent abounded, there would not be more than 10 people who dared to receive the blue-robed Emperor's flame palm without using a martial technique. Unexpectedly, such a person appeared in Blackwater City. Furthermore, this was a young, outstanding talent about the same age as Zhang Feng. You are somewhat capable. However, this is all you are capable of. Before me, it is not enough. Back off. Zhang Feng shouted ferociously, and a ring of black flames soared up from his body. His aura soared infinitely. The power of the world and the surroundings surged and turned into an endless torrent of fiery energy. Like waves, it flowed along Zhang Feng's palm and surged toward Shao Qin. Several of the people across Shao Qin could feel the waves of fiery energy, each stronger than the one before. As the heat wave assaulted them, they had no choice but to retreat. Shao Qin did not move, letting the heat wave assault him as it pleased. He did not show any intention of retreating. In Shao Qin's sea of consciousness, his saber soul and will of thunder merged. With a thought, they immediately erupted. Purple lightning leaped out of Shao Qin's body. Every bolt of lightning contained an incredibly sharp saber intent. The lightning and saber intent merged perfectly. The other party's waves of fiery energy, each stronger than the one before, continued to erupt endlessly. Shao Qin only used his lightning saber soul and his flawless saber Dao to block the other party's surging waves of fiery energy. Shao Qin had yet to use several of his trump cards. Time slowly passed. Everyone discovered that something was wrong with the atmosphere. It was just a simple exchange of palm strikes, but the two actually fought to such an extent. The Heavenly Cauldron Pavilion's manager frowned slightly. If this continued, both sides would end up with severe injuries. That would be extremely disadvantageous to the auction. At the same time, a soft voice rang out in the manager's ears. That was the person behind the scenes of the Heavenly Cauldron Pavilion, wanting him to make a move and end this fight. Without hesitation, this person threw a palm strike. The palm wind split into two and charged at Shao Qin and Zhang Feng. Given the blue-robed emperor's cultivation at consummation, the two fighting would have to retreat even if they did not want to. Zhang Feng cursed. However, he could not do anything. At this moment, he simply could not afford to split his attention to receive this palm strike. Zhang Feng's figure flashed. When the palm wind arrived, he retreated. He spun a few times in the air before he found his footing. The Heavenly Cauldron Pavilion's manager smiled in satisfaction. However, before his smile could fade, he saw that Xiao Qin did not retreat at all. Xiao Chen suddenly raised his left hand, which had been hanging by his side. Then a nimble bright moon appeared behind him, burning fiercely like a flame. It depicted lofty sentiments and hot-bloodedness. When Xiao Qin sent out this palm strike, it made one's heart surge and blood surge. It was like drinking strong wine, feeling carefree and carefree. Unexpectedly, Xiao Chen broke the palm wind that the Heavenly Cauldron Pavilion's manager sent out with the cultivation of a consummation, blue-robed emperor. One had to know that Xiao Qin had just finished fighting to the death with Jiang Feng. He did not have any time to turn around or rest. Instead, he raised his hand and broke the manager's attack. Such a scene caused many people to stare blankly. One retreated quickly, and the other did not move even half a step. It was clear who came out on top between Xiao Qin and Jiang Feng. The strong wind stopped, and Xiao Chen's clothes and hair fell back. The saber hum lingering in the air also stopped. Xiao Qin stood upright with his hands behind his back. His delicate face exuded an indescribable pride. "You are very lucky. That earlier palm strike was originally meant for you," Xiao Qin said coldly to Jiang Feng, who was hovering in the air. Xiao Qin said coldly to Jiang Feng, who was hovering in the air. Then he turned around and ignored him, heading for the metal puppet. Bang! Xiao Qin said coldly to the hovering Jiang Feng. Then he turned around and walked towards the metal statue, ignoring him. The explosion was like thunder roaring, startling the surrounding cultivators back to their senses. They all looked at the stone tablet curiously. They wanted to see what kind of result this mysterious man in white could achieve. They all looked at the stone stele curiously, wanting to see what kind of result this mysterious, white-clad person could achieve. The first row lit up in an instant, the second row lit up in a breath's time, and the third row took 3 seconds to light up. The first row lit up instantly. The second row lit up in one breath. The third row took 3 seconds to light up the 10 gems. If there were no surprises, Xiao Qin should be able to light up the 10 gems in the 5th row. This was the limit of a peak great perfection blue-robed emperor. As for the gems in the 6th row, only a consummation blue-robed emperor, a cultivator who merged his soul with the heavenly seal, could successfully light them up. Without exception, all the cultivators who lit up the gems in the 6th row were consummation blue-robed emperors. The gems in the 5th row lit up slowly, one by one. To everyone's surprise, all 10 gems lit up. Indeed, a newly advanced Great Perfection Blue-robed Emperor already has the combat prowess of a peak Great Perfection Blue-robed Emperor. No wonder he can defeat Jiang Feng. This is an expert. I have never heard of him in the Blackwater Sea. I have never heard of him in the nearby Blackwind Sea or the Blackwater Sea. He should be from another sea region. As the crowd discussed in low voices, one of the eye-catching purple gems in the 6th row suddenly lit up silently. The surroundings fell silent. Everyone gaped, somewhat speechless. They could not believe the scene before them. After a while, they confirmed it. Startled cries rang out, and the crowd went into an uproar. A Great Perfection Blue-robed Emperor actually burst out with a strength that only a consummation Blue-robed Emperor could achieve. How startling was this? However, Xiao Qin, who stood in front of the metal puppet, frowned slightly, feeling dissatisfied. He had used his full power in that earlier punch. Aside from not using his saber or a secret technique to increase his explosive power, he had not held anything back. Unexpectedly, only one purple gem in the 6th row lit up. The difference in strength between Xiao Qin and the consummation Blue-robed Emperor was still obvious. Even if Xiao Qin used a secret technique, he would only light up 3 more gems, bringing the total to 4. If Xiao Qin ran into the slightly more powerful consummation Blue-robed Emperor, His strength would still pale in comparison. "Young man, you are pretty strong. Here, these are the tickets to the VIP rooms on the 6th floor." Chapter 1147. The person in charge next to the stone tablet smiled slightly and handed a golden ticket to Xiaoqin. He continued, "I have been standing here for a whole day. You are the first young martial artist to light up the 6th row of gems. Moreover, you are only at the level of great accomplishment, blue-robed emperor. You have unlimited potential. I'm sure you'll be able to find treasures that interest you in the auction and dig out your potential." Xiao Chen took the gold card and glanced at it. He smiled casually and said, "Thank you for your auspicious words, senior." Seeing that Xiao Chen was not arrogant in the slightest, the supervisor nodded inwardly, and his evaluation of Xiao Chen rose by another level. Xiao Chen turned his head and said goodbye to Yu Bingyun. Then he indicated that he would take his leave first. Yu Bingyun smiled faintly and sent a voice projection to meet up after the auction. Jiang Feng, who was hovering in the air, trembled in anger as he watched Xiao Chen walk towards the doors of the Heavenly Cauldron Pavilion before the envious gazes of many cultivators. As the descendant of the Black Sea's great bandit Zhang Heng, he spent most of his time in the Black Sea's largest region, the Dark Sea. Wherever he went, he would be the center of attention. Aside from a few outstanding young talents who were so strong that Xiao Chen could not do anything about them, no one in the same generation dared to be so arrogant before him. After winning by just half a move, the other party chose to ignore him. Furthermore, it was in a small place like Blackwater City. Cursing angrily, Zhang Heng landed in front of the Iron Man. His whole body was like smoke, rushing up and kicking the Iron Man. Light flickered on the stone steel as the gems lit up continuously. He also lit up the 6th row of purple gems, and 2 of them won more than Xiao Chen. A look of pride flashed across Jiang Feng's face. "Compared to me, you are still a little weaker. I have a secret technique passed down by the Jiang clan. The power he could unleash was already comparable to that of the great perfection blue-robed emperor. Don't give me a chance to catch you alone." With a fling of his sleeves, Jiang Feng received the golden ticket and quickly walked over. Incredible. He truly lives up to being a descendant of a sovereign martial emperor. This Jiang Feng's explosive power is really startling. He used a secret technique. The Flame King has a secret technique called the wolf smoke art. Once it's used, the blood vessels in the entire body will boil and essence energy will spurt out like smoke. It can be seen from 5 kilometers away, and its explosive power is extremely shocking. It's said that when the wolf smoke art is cultivated to the highest level, it can even ignite one's own bloodline. Combined with the Jiang clan's flame cultivation technique, it can increase one's explosive power by several times. Speaking of which, this Jiang Feng has always been in Dark City. Why did he come to our Blackwater City? He's probably just passing by. Hee. But he definitely didn't expect that he would lose to a Blackwater City's advanced blue-robed emperor in front of everyone. When Jiang Feng, who was already walking up the stairs, heard these discussions, the killing intent in his eyes grew even stronger. He clenched his right hand into a fist, and his bones crackled. Hu-chi. As soon as Jiang Feng left, another person came in. He looked to be in his 40s or 50s and had an extraordinary bearing. He was dressed luxuriously and wore a priceless jade ring on his thumb. 10 odd servants followed behind him. They walked over with their heads held high and chests puffed up. Their group was very grand and impressive. When Yu Bingyun saw this person, a strange light immediately flashed in her eyes. This middle-aged man was none other than the current manor lord of the Jadeite Mountain Manor, Fei Lingi. Fei Lingi's cultivation was rather horrifying. Even so, when he walked over, he did not release any aura at all. However, he still put a formless pressure on everyone. This made it hard for people to breathe and suppress their hearts, not daring to look him in the eye. The person in charge of the Heavenly Cauldron Pavilion was clearly familiar with Fei Lingy. He took the initiative to greet Fei Lingy and give him a purple gold ticket. That was the most distinguished seat in the auction house. Only after lighting up all 10 purple gems on the 6th row could one qualify to obtain it. Fei Lingy received the purple gold ticket and smiled. Senior Ma is too polite. However, we still cannot break the Heavenly Cauldron Pavilion's rules. After saying that, Fei Lingy shifted his gaze and focused on the metal puppet at the side. A startling aura suddenly erupted from Fei Lingy's body. The berserk aura knocked some people back in time and knocked them into the air. Bang! The stone steel gave off a bright light, lighting up all 60 gems on the 6th row in one go. The sight of it was very startling. Fei Lingy withdrew his aura and shook his head. It still won't do. Indeed, only Emperor Wu can light up the golden gems on the 7th row. Even though my strength is already no weaker than that of a small perfection Emperor Wu's, without condensing a heart of an emperor, the difference will forever be a difference. Such an aura was even more ferocious than that of the consummation blue-robed emperors from earlier. The 60 gems lit up at the same time, not pausing at all. Everyone was shocked at how strong Fei Lingy was. In reality, this Fei Lingy was indeed far stronger than some of the consummation blue-robed emperors. This was because the other consummation blue-robed emperors had not undergone their great tribulation of wind and fire. However, Fei Lingy had. Although he failed, he was fortunate enough not to die. After he survived, his strength increased significantly. When one underwent the great tribulation of wind and fire, there was a slim chance of survival. Once one succeeded, one could ascend to emperor and look down on everyone, becoming a true peak character of this world. However, there were also some people who didn't succeed in overcoming their tribulations. However, they were lucky enough to survive, allowing their strength to increase once again. Such people were known as half-step Emperor Wu, also known as false Emperor Wu. The power of the world that they could drive was already no weaker than that of a small, perfection, blue-robed emperor. However, they did not have a heart of an emperor, so they were always half a step short. Furthermore, after undergoing the tribulation once, there would be no second chance. That was to say, while this Fei Lingy looked strong now, he would never have a chance to take that half-step to Emperor Wu in this lifetime. As Yu Bingyan watched Fei Lingy enter the Heavenly Cauldron Pavilion, a smile slowly appeared on her face. This person finally arrived. If Yu Bingyan had not come, there would have been a 30% chance of him advancing the Heavenly Cloud Jadeite sword to a transcendent divine weapon. However, once he arrived, according to the plan, Fei Lingy would have no chance at all, destined to fail. The divine weapon, the Heavenly Cloud Jadeite sword, would be reduced to a pile of scrap metal. The Lunar Palace's startling Phoenix Chin would also be able to remain on the divine weapon ranking. Yu Bingyan had successfully completed her mission. Inside the Heavenly Cauldron Pavilion was an exquisite and elegant hall. The interior was a ring-shaped building with 7 floors. After Xiao Chun handed over his golden ticket, an attendant led him to a large, luxurious private room on the ring-shaped 6th floor. The private room setup was very interesting. The Heavenly Cauldron Pavilion had no intention of protecting the privacy of the customers. The windows were open to the air. Not only the owners of the private rooms on the opposite floors, but also the customers in the hall could see each other. The hall was already filled with many cultivators. These were all small perfection blue-robed emperors who did not get a private room. There were about 1,000 of them. At first glance, 1,000 small perfection blue-robed emperors seemed like a lot. However, when one thought about it carefully, just the local cultivators in Blackwater City numbered more than 100 million. Furthermore, there were many blue-robed emperors from other sea regions who came for experiential training. It would not be an exaggeration for 1,000 small perfection blue-robed emperors to gather together. If one included those blue-robed emperors who were still adventuring in the various remnants and did not have time to come, there would be even more. This was the first time Shao Chen saw so many blue-robed emperors gathered together. He could not help but sigh in his heart. Sometimes, only when one's strength reached a certain level could one officially enter a circle of a certain level. If it were in the past, Shao Chen would not have even heard of an auction of this scale. To him, this was like a legend. Now, Shao Chen had gone from a minor character when he first entered the Kunlun realm to a VIP private room in a blue-robed emperor-level auction. As he looked down on the group of older generation blue-robed emperors, he enjoyed the glory of being in a superior position. Something that he did not even dare to imagine back then happened to him. However, he felt strangely calm, not feeling too proud or satisfied. I wonder what kind of scene will an Emperor Wu level auction and gathering be like. Shao Chen picked up the wine cup on the table and gently swirled it for a while. Then he drank it in one gulp, feeling boundless anticipation in his heart. The auction would officially start only after sunset. Right now, it was still some time before sunset. Since he had nothing to do, Shao Chen picked up the auction list on the table and carefully looked through it. It is indeed a blue-robed emperor level auction. The things being auctioned here are really exciting. To think that there is even a divine weapon. Shao Chen's gaze moved around the list, searching for his target. Coincidentally, he saw a divine weapon being auctioned. It was a treasure sword with a starting bid of 20 million black astral coins. Aside from a consummation blue-robed emperor, a regular blue-robed emperor would not be able to afford such a price. As a saber user, Shao Chen naturally did not dare to be interested in this. As he continued to look, a medicinal pill attracted his attention. The source-returning pill could instantly recover one's heavenly laws, which was equivalent to doubling one's law energy. To people like Shao Chen, who did not have as much law energy as a consummation blue-robed emperor, this medicinal pill held a great attraction. When one ran out of law energy, one could consume an internal source-returning pill and immediately regain combat prowess. In times of danger, one would be able to survive. Shao Chen had heard of this medicinal pill before. The ingredients were extremely difficult to gather, and the success rate was very low. It was extremely rare among king-grade medicinal pills. There were 5 medicinal pills in this bottle, and the starting bid was 1 million black astral coins. Shao Chen estimated that, given the value of this medicinal pill, the final bid would be 3 or 4 times higher. After looking through the list, Shao Chen discovered that many of the auction items did not have a detailed introduction. They did not even have a name. This was probably to maintain a sense of mystery. Only when the auction officially started would there be a grand introduction. Aside from the source-returning pill, which Shao Chen paid special attention to, there were a few other treasures that he marked as well. As long as the price was not too ridiculous, he would bid for them. Shao Chen was filled with anticipation for these mysterious auction items, hoping that they would give him a pleasant surprise. Strange! How could there be such a heavenly treasure being auctioned? Just as Shao Chen was about to put down the list, Ao Jiao suddenly spoke up from the Immortal spirit ring. Shao Chen took a look at the list and felt that he had not missed anything. He did not know which auction item Ao Jiao was referring to. Why didn't I notice that auction item? It is that heptagold origin. Heptagold is a peak divine material in the first place. Heptagold origin is even more pitifully rare. If heptagold origin is added to a divine weapon, the chances of breaking through to a transcendent divine weapon will double. Shao Chen quickly looked over. After he saw the starting bid, he finally understood why he had not paid attention to it. This heptagold origin actually had a starting bid of only 10,000 black astral coins. Chapter 1148. Why is the reserve price so low? I nearly missed it. It doesn't matter. Even if the reserve price for such a divine item is 0, it will quickly reach 10 million black astral coins. I just find it strange that such an item appeared in the auction house. Why would someone with the ability to obtain such an item auction it? A thought occurred to Shao Qin. He asked, "Little Ao Jiao, should we bid for this heptagold origin? If I succeed in breaking through to Emperor Wu, the lunar shadow saber will have to advance to a divine weapon." Ao Jiao, who was in the immortal spirit ring, remained silent for a while. Then she shook her head and said, "There's no need. I know where to find a heptagold origin. When you advance to consummation, Emperor Wu, I will bring you there. There's no need to rush the lunar shadow saber. If it does not advance to a divine weapon, then so be it. Once it does, it will definitely make it onto the divine weapon ranking." Shao Chen rejoiced in his heart. He smiled and said, "There is such a place? Why did you not tell me about it?" Ao Jiao smiled and did not reply. She had to tell Shao Chen the location of the Thunder King's inheritance. As for the Thunder King's final wish, that would depend on Shao Chen's own choice. The most important thing now was to help Shao Chen succeed in breaking through to Emperor Wu. Otherwise, everything would be for naught. The Thunder King probably did not want to see Shao Chen become a meteor at such a young age, disappearing in a flash. Suddenly, Shao Chen thought of something. With the heptagold origin here, that jadeite Mount to Manor's Manor Lord, Fei Lingyi, would definitely come. If Shao Chen managed to obtain this heptagold origin, there was a 70 to 80% chance that the heavenly cloud jadeite sword would advance to a transcendent, divine weapon. Shao Chen frowned slightly when he felt an extremely strong aura. He looked up and saw a middle-aged man with an imposing appearance and an air of arrogance. He was escorted by a group of servants as he walked in with large strides. There was an uproar in the hall. Many lesser tier blue robed emperors stood up and greeted them. When Shao Chen heard how this middle-aged man addressed him, he put down the list and revealed a faint smile. "What a coincidence! I was just thinking about this Fei Lingyi when this fellow appeared." With this person around, Shao Chen had a premonition that the heptagold origin would definitely be auctioned off for a sky-high price. Fortunately, Ao Jiao knew of a place with a heptagold origin. Otherwise, she would have to spend a lot of black astral coins to compete with this person. As more and more blue-robed emperors entered, the atmosphere in the hall became more and more lively. At the doors, Shao Chen saw a familiar figure. An attendant led Yu Bingyin to the VIP room on the 5th floor. Shao Chen entered deep thought. He wondered what kind of expression Yu Bingyin would have when she saw the heptagold origin on the auction list. If Fei Lingyi obtained this item and the heavenly cloud jadeite sword successfully became a transcendent divine weapon, her mission would be considered a complete failure. Wait, why does this feel somewhat strange? If Ao Jiao did not know that there were heptagold origins elsewhere, he would definitely try to obtain this heptagold origin at all costs. That would be equivalent to him helping Yu Bingyin. Furthermore, Yu Bingyin was the one who introduced him to this auction. Could it be a coincidence? That was not right. Yu Bingyin did not know that Shao Chen obtained the Dragon's Gate treasure trove and did not think that his wealth was stronger than Fei Lingyi's. Given Yu Bingyin's cautious character, she absolutely would not place all her hopes on Shao Chen. At this moment, in the private room, Yu Bingyin looked at the heptagold origin on the list and revealed a faint smile. No matter how Shao Chen guessed, he could not guess what Yu Bingyin's plan was. Since she personally made a move, how could she let Fei Lingyi succeed? When the full moon hung high in the sky, the Heavenly Cauldron Pavilion's blue-robed emperor-level auction started on time. On the auction stage, the person in charge of the auction, who had been standing outside earlier, walked up and performed a cupped fist salute. Then, after some pleasantries, he went straight to the point. "This old man is Yang Yunfan. I will not make too many introductions. In the future, if anyone has any treasures to buy or auction, you can come and look for me at any time. Now the auction will begin. The first treasure is a pair of peak-quality king-grade gloves called the Fleeting Shadow Gloves." Yang Yunfan spoke frankly with assurance, going straight to the point. He did not beat around the bush at all. Then he continued, "Friends familiar with Emperor-grade secret treasures should know that even the most ordinary Emperor-grade secret treasure requires the cultivation of a small perfection Emperor in order to bring out its full might. The secret treasure most suitable for the blue-robed Emperor is still a Peak King grade secret treasure, which is also commonly known as Peak Quality King grade secret treasures. Aside from increasing one's attack speed, the fleeting shadow gloves can also disperse a portion of the opponent's attack. The starting bid is 1,000,000 black astral coins. Each bid must be no less than 100,000 black astral coins." After Xiao Qin heard the introduction, his eyes lit up. This pair of gloves was simply tailor-made for him. By increasing his attack speed, Xiao Qin could draw his saber even faster. The ability to disperse attacks could also improve the combat prowess of his fist and palm techniques. There was probably no one else in the auction house like Xiao Qin. Since Xiao Qin was a bladesman, his fist and palm techniques could also surpass the others. 1,500,000, 165,000, 1,700,000, 2,000,000. There was no need to fear that no one would fight for a good item. The moment this pair of fleeting shadow gloves was put up for auction, it immediately became a hot topic. The price soared to 2,000,000 black astral coins, nearly doubling in an instant. This flabbergasted Xiao Qin. There were really many rich people. In an instant, the price doubled. In reality, Xiao Qin did not know that it was rare for such an auction to happen. Many of the blue-robed emperors had already made preparations to save money before the auction started. Some even borrowed black astral coins from their friends in advance. The reason was none other than the fact that it became increasingly difficult to raise one's cultivation after reaching the blue-robed emperor realm. In a situation where everyone did not improve much, the effects of external items on combat prowess were magnified many times over. If one managed to find a suitable treasure, one could immediately raise one's combat prowess by 10 to 20%, equivalent to decades of bitter cultivation. With such a reason, it would be strange if the competition was not intense. Xiao Qin did not rush to call out a bid. He had participated in many auctions of various sizes before and had already grasped some of the techniques. When one saw something that caught one's eye, there was no need to rush to call out a bid. One had to observe carefully to see who was chasing after it and figure out the other party's psychological price. Of course, this was under the condition that no one was messing around. If someone was purposely messing around, all techniques would be useless. In the end, one would still have to rely on wealth. After observing for a long time, when the price of the fleeting shadow gloves reached 3,000,000 black astral coins, Xiao Qin called out a bid of 4,000,000 black astral coins. Raising the price by 1,000,000 black astral coins in one go immediately broke the psychological barrier of several people chasing after the fleeting shadow gloves. This resulted in a temporary silence. If Xiao Qin's observation was right, the people who were truly chasing after this fleeting shadow gloves would not raise the price any further. He would successfully purchase this pair of gloves at the price of 4,000,000 black astral coins. 5,000,000 black astral coins. Just as everyone was silent, a cold and sinister voice called out a bid. Xiao Qin felt a murderous intent. He looked over and saw Jiang Feng in the private room across from him. "Who is so rich? This is not worth it. This pair of gloves is worth, at most, 3,000,000 black astral coins. It has already tripled. 4,000,000 black astral coins is already a loss. 5,000,000 black astral coins is really too much. It's Jiang Feng. He is competing with that white-robed bladesman. No wonder he lost face to the white-robed bladesman outside and is trying to regain it here. This is not going to be easy. The white-robed bladesman probably will not be able to buy anything good. The Black Sea great bandit Jiang Heng is very wealthy. As his grandson, Jiang Feng has at least 20 to 30 million black astral coins. that is comparable to the consummation blue-robed emperor. Noisy discussions resounded. Many gazes looked at Shao Chun with pity in their eyes. Dang! Jiang Feng placed the wine cup in his hand heavily on the table and wiped the wine off his lips with a handkerchief. Then he looked provocatively at Shao Chen and said coldly, "Let's see what you are going to use to compete with me." 10 million black astral coins. Shao Chen ignored Jiang Feng's gaze and slowly called out a price that no one dared to believe. Pussy. Before Jiang Feng could swallow the wine in his mouth, he spat it out. His face was filled with shock and disbelief. The words 10 million black astral coins resounded in his ears. Damn, is he crazy? My God, 10 million black astral coins. What kind of concept is that? Even some ordinary emperor-grade secret treasures are only worth 10 million black astral coins. However, the blue-robed emperor will not be able to bring out their full potential. Speechless, you really cannot compare yourself with others. Does he have that much money? He should be very clear that he will not have a good ending if he dares to raise the price in the heavenly cauldron auction. I think Jiang Feng is going to cry. Just now, he wanted to use money to slap Jiang Feng's face. Who knew he got slapped so hard? This slap is really heavy. Haha, this is interesting. The young, outstanding talent of the Black Sea is continuously getting slapped in the face in our Blackwater Sea. He must be feeling very sullen. Bang! Jiang Feng slammed his palm heavily on the solid wood table, shattering it. He gritted his teeth in anger, wanting to call out a bid of 20 million black astral coins on impulse. However, he only had 20 million black astral coins on him. Furthermore, he still needed to use it to purchase a treasure that he had been interested in for a long time. He did not dare to call out such a price. 10 million black astral coins going once, going twice, going thrice. Good. No more bids. Sold. Yang Yunfan spoke in a rhythmic manner. Finally, he hammered down the hammer. The first auction was a success. The sky-high opening price was a good start. The smiling Yang Yunfan thought to himself, I have to make friends with that white-clad youth after this is over. His background is definitely not simple. Inside the booth, Shao Chun slowly put down his wine cup. He continued to ignore Jiang Feng's murderous gaze, not bothering with him. There was no need to say much to such a person. Shao Chen wanted to talk about the rules with him, but he did not follow them. He insisted on using his influence to force people, telling them to scram before the testing stone steel. Then he was unreasonable during the auction, wanting to use his wealth to humiliate Shao Chen. In that case, there was no need for Shao Chun to care about Batu's face. If you want to fight, then fight. Let's see who will have the last laugh. Shao Chen has more than 100 million black astral coins on him. Aside from the jadeite Mountain Manor's Manor Lord and a few other older generation people, there were not many people in the entire auction hall that Shao Chen feared in terms of wealth. Up in the booth on the 7th floor, Fei Lingyi revealed some doubt on his arrogant face as he watched the commotion below. He waved his hand and instructed, investigate this person's background and see if he will be a threat to my auction of the heptagold origin. After a pause, Fei Lingyi said, let him know in advance. Tell him to be sensible and not act rashly. This heptagold origin is very important. Nothing can go wrong. 2 old men in the booth immediately left to carry out the order and disappeared. Chapter 1149. As Fei Lingyi held the list and looked at the heptagold origin, a dazzling light appeared in his eyes. The appearance of this heptagold origin was truly the heavens helping him. It would be hard for the heavenly cloud, jadeite, sword, not to become a transcendent divine weapon. Manor Lord, what if that person does not listen to us? After all, he even dared to slap Jiang Feng's face ruthlessly. A person at the side asked somewhat uncertainly. Fei Lingyi put down the list and rubbed the jadeite ring on his thumb with his right hand. A murderous intent flashed in his eyes as he smiled and said, That's good. That will save us some money. Inside the private room, Xiao Chen did not know that Fei Lingyi already had his eyes on him. However, even if he knew, he would not care. That golden plume feather in his hand could even force back the greater heavenly Emperor Wu. Why would he fear Fei Lingyi? At this moment, Xiao Chen happily paid the bill and sized up the fleeting shadow gloves in high spirits. After leaving his spiritual mark on them, he immediately put them on. The material of the fleeting shadow gloves was extremely soft. A peak refining grandmaster had used excellent skills to blend many divine materials into a kind of soft metal. The surface of the gloves was smooth like flowing water. When worn, half of the fingers would be exposed, making it even more convenient. There was an imprint on the back of the gloves. Formations for dispersing force were inlaid in them. Xiao Qin tested the gloves in the private room. When he attacked, there was no sound of wind at all, just like the name Fleeting Shadow. It felt like his hands merged with the air without any resistance. Xiao Chen's attack speed increased by 20%. As for the effect of dispersing force, he would have to test it in actual combat. With this pair of gloves, Xiao Chen's combat prowess increased significantly. Now he could face a consummation blue-robed emperor. As long as Xiao Qin did not face a consummation blue-robed emperor that had been stuck for more than 10 years or a consummation blue-robed emperor that cultivated a profound cultivation technique, Xiao Chen would be able to fight a consummation blue-robed emperor. This gave Xiao Qin even more confidence. Even if he could not obtain victory, he was still confident of not being defeated. No one would believe that a newly ascended blue-robed emperor could fight against a perfected blue-robed emperor. Wang Zhen and Xia Luo, who were also in the private rooms on the 6th floor, also saw the scene of Xiao Qin putting on the flowing shadow glove. The murderous intent in their eyes uncontrollably manifested itself. "Second young master, is it him?" Wang Zhen asked. Xia Luo nodded with a sinister expression. "That's him. To think that he actually has such wealth. This is truly unexpected." Wang Zhen smiled and said, "Second young master, don't worry. After the auction ends, I will find someone to follow him. At that time, not only will I help second young master teach this brat a good lesson, but I'll also help second young master seize the pair of gloves." Xia Luo revealed a smile on his face. "Good. I do not need these gloves. They are just nice for Big Brother to use." Amidst the numerous undercurrents, the auction proceeded like a raging fire. Treasure after treasure was sold at exorbitant prices. Yang Yunfan also started to introduce the source returning pill that caught Xiao Chen's eye. Yang Yunfan took out a bottle of medicinal pills and said, "This is a bottle of source returning pills. I believe everyone knows their effects and how low the success rate is. I will not elaborate. There's a total of 5 medicinal pills. The starting price is 1 million black astral coins. Each increment must be no less than 100,000 black astral coins." As the auction started, the price soared. Such a medicinal pill could be used to save one's life or turn the tables at a crucial moment. It was simply a divine medicine that could instantly recover law energy. It would be hard not to be envious. 4 million black astral coins. 4 million black astral coins. 5 million black astral coins. 6 million black astral coins. Toward the end, every increment was 1 million black astral coins, far surpassing Xiao Chen's expectations. However, with his meticulous mind, Xiao Qin discovered that the ones bidding were all great perfection blue-robed emperors. On the contrary, few consummation blue-robed emperors bid. This source returning pill might not have an instant recovery effect on a consummation blue-robed emperor. 10 million black astral coins. Suddenly, someone called out, raising the bid by 4 million black astral coins in one go. This person's attitude completely suppressed the voices of the other bidders. Although the source returning pill was good, At 10 million black astral coins, the quality-price ratio was not very high. Xiao Qin looked towards the source of the voice. The one who called out the bid was Jiang Feng, the descendant of the Black Sea's great bandit Jiang Heng. Jiang Feng had to obtain this source-returning pill no matter what. The moment he called out the bid, he displayed an overbearing aura, extinguishing the hopes of several people. Damn it, it is really unfair to compete with these noble clan scions in terms of wealth. Who asked him to have a good grandfather? In the eyes of a sovereign martial emperor, 10 million black astral coins is nothing. When the group of blue-robed emperors who were envious of the source-returning pill heard the bid of 10 million black astral coins, they could not help complaining. It was not that they did not have 10 million black astral coins. It was just that they could not accept it. Using 10 million black astral coins to buy 5 source-returning pills was not worth it. When Jiang Feng heard the discussions below, he revealed a cocky smile. Earlier, these people had mocked him a lot. A bunch of country bumpkins, scared silly by 10 million black astral coins. Jiang Feng smiled faintly, forgetting that he had been shocked by Xiao Chen's 10 million black astral coins earlier, not daring to make another bid. Inside the private room, Xiao Chen entered deep thought, wondering if he should continue calling out bids. There were not many things that caught Xiao Chen's eye. However, this Jiang Feng had his eye on the 2 things that he liked, causing the price to soar. The other party was probably purposely looking for trouble with the fleeting shadow gloves. As for the source-returning pills, he was probably sincere about auctioning them. Is there anyone else who wants to raise the bid for the source-returning pill? 10 million black astral coins going once. 10 million black astral coins going twice. Just as Yang Yunfan was about to slam the gavel, Xiao Chen made up his mind. Since he had taken a fancy to it, he would fight for it. No matter how much money he had to buy it. Otherwise, if he regretted it in the future, he might even lose his life. It would be pointless to hold onto a pile of black astral coins. Not wanting to waste time with this Jiang Feng, Xiao Chen directly called out, 20 million black astral coins. The moment the horrifying bid was called out, the entire auction hall fell silent, completely stupefied. Not only were the small perfection blue-robed emperors in the hall stunned, but Jiang Feng was stunned as well. He only had 20 million black astral coins in total. He had never thought of spending it all on this source-returning pill. No matter what, he had to keep half of it for himself. Earlier, Jiang Feng had been mocking the others for being a bunch of country bumpkins. Right after he spoke, he was instantly slapped in the face. He really could not accept this. Damn it! If this were Dark City, I would be able to move 50 million black astral coins at any time. There would be no need for me to suffer like this. Jiang Feng was so angry that he nearly exploded. If not for this being the Heavenly Cauldron Pavilion, he would have charged over on the spot. Once again, Xiao Chen experienced the feeling of being rich and overbearing. At the price of 20 million black astral coins, he shocked the entire auction hall and successfully obtained this bottle of source-returning pill. Just as Xiao Chen received the source-returning pill, a voice projection rang out in his ears. I'm the Manor Lord of the Jadeite Mountain Manor. Pass on a message. I hope that when the Heptagold Origin is auctioned later, you will give me some face and not join in the fun. When Xiao Chen heard this, he felt excited. Fei Lingyi probably would not say the same thing to him alone. It looked like he was determined to obtain this Heptagold Origin. Xiao Chen had already chosen to give up on the Heptagold Origin. Whether this person sent a voice projection or not, it would be the same. I am not interested in the Heptagold Origin. You can rest assured. The person who sent the message returned to the booth with satisfaction. Then he reported to Fei Lingyi, Manor Lord. I have already spoken to them. The person you specially instructed also indicated that he will not join in the fun. When Fei Lingyi heard this, he smiled faintly and said, I, Fei Lingyi, still have some face in Blackwater City. The Lunar Palace's people will definitely not expect that the Heavenly Cauldron Pavilion will auction a heptagold origin. After we obtain the heptagold origin today, get the people at the Mountain Manor to make preparations to break through to a transcendent divine weapon. So fast? Isn't it supposed to be on the 15th of next month? The others in the booth exclaimed in shock. Fei Lingy said sullenly, since we already have the heptagold origin, there is no need to be so calculative. If we delay, something unexpected might happen. The sooner, the better. When the sky was about to brighten, the climax of the auction finally arrived. The last auction item, the heptagold origin, was taken out. This is the heptagold origin, a divine material among divine materials. The Heavenly Cauldron Pavilion is lucky to be able to obtain such a treasure this time. I believe that any blue-robed emperor would be very familiar with its value. I will not introduce it and start the auction. Everyone, just make your bid. Yang Yunfan appeared very confident in this last auction item. Even if the starting bid was 0, such a treasure would eventually fetch a sky-high price. I bid 20 million black astral coins. I hope that everyone will give me, Fei Lingy, some face. My Jadeite Mountain Manor's Heavenly Cloud Jadeite sword will be breaking through to a transcendent divine weapon after daybreak. After I obtain the heptagold origin, I will give everyone here an invitation to attend the ceremony together. Fei Lingy, who had been silent since the start of the auction, immediately stood up and made a bid after Yang Yunfan finished speaking, revealing an explosive piece of news. Immediately, an uproar broke out. Many people were extremely shocked. This news came a little too suddenly. After Fei Lingy's words rang out, Yang Yunfan's expression turned extremely unsightly. Fei Lingy's words severely broke the rules of the auction, using his influence to disrupt the auction. Fei Lingy's bid was not low. Although the heptagold origin was rare, it was only the size of a thumb. 20 million black astral coins was sufficient. However, if the rules were broken, how was the Heavenly Cauldron Pavilion going to do business in the future? Yang Yunfan's face sank. He said, "Manor Lord, isn't this a little inappropriate?" Fei Lingy stood up and said, "Sorry, I must obtain this heptagold origin. I can add another 10 million black astral coins." Just as Yang Yunfan was about to say something, a voice projection suddenly entered his ears. The person behind the scenes of the Heavenly Cauldron Pavilion had sent a message. The seller completely accepted the price of 30 million black astral coins. After hearing that, Yang Yunfan swallowed back what he wanted to say. Then he organized his words and said, "Good. This time, I will give the Jadeite sovereign some face. The Heavenly Cauldron Pavilion will not disqualify you from the auction. However, the Heavenly Cauldron Pavilion is open for business and welcomes competition. If there are any friends who can bid more than 30 million black astral coins, we guarantee your safety in the auction. No one will threaten you.